Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And we have Bill and Hillary Clinton were requested to testify in front of a congressional hearing. They did not want to show up. The word was they were going to get arrested or put on trial. Now that the Epstein files were actually released, they've decided now's the time to actually testify. So it's going to be very interesting what kind of happens here. Hillary's been making waves and headlines over the last few weeks. So we're going to get into all that, plus all your geopolitics of the day.
But before we start, thank you for joining us. And also, please don't forget to subscribe. It really does help us out. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers because we want to get monetized, honestly. But it really does help us out. And also, thank you for being here. I already said that. And hello to Nan while we're here. Thank you for being here, Nan.
Oh, good. Nan showed up. I actually wanted to talk to Nan because you left a series of comments. And I did want to address them because I really do like Nan. And we do want to know what you're cooking for dinner, or you or your wife's cooking for dinner tonight. But it comes up quite often because I used to be a liberal as well. I was fairly non-political, but I would say I was on the left if I was pressed, primarily because the left was the party of populism. Since Trump has come into office, he has stolen most of those ideals that the left used to have. And on top of that, your traditional or your radical left on the left-hand side has cleared out those values and staked their reputation on more radical values. The populists now lie on the right. And that's why I think I'm so hard on the left. Those ideals no longer exist on the left. The populists,
or in very few quantities.
In few quantities. The populists that were on the left have now come over to the right. I would say this would be Tulsi Gabbard, an RFK. I mean, I can go on and on with disenfranchised liberals that have come over to the populist right. There's literally no populist left on the right, or people that, left on the left. Yeah. If I were to try to think of them, I would say Bernie Sanders, but there was a distinct point. Bernie Sanders kind of sold out and he no longer has those values anymore whatsoever. Yeah. The left is now the party of war. They're not the anti-war party. You could say Trump, well, yeah, he's making incursions into all these places, but these are in and out incursions. These are not long-term wars, which I do appreciate. Hopefully that keeps up. But also the Workers' Party, these union heads and the union elites may tell their party to vote for the left, but the workers are firmly on the right-hand side. Now, I will say this. I'm on the right now because the populist sentiment is there. That being said, there's a war on the right going on. The neocons want to take back the party from the populists. And if Marco Rubio gets into power, that's very much probably going to be the situation. One other thing I would say is I do want to see the left, or the normal people that are left on the left, or that had left come back and reform that party. Make it the party of anti-war again. Make it the Workers' Party again. Bring these populist ideals back and clear out the radicals from your party. But the radicals firmly have control of the left right now. And that's why sometimes when I speak, I generalize the left as radical leftists.
And we also saw, and I mean, if you don't know, I used to be super on the left and super woke and planning, LGBTQ alphabet marches and etc. I marched against Trump in the Women's March in Vancouver, and I helped organize it too. But that was 11 years ago now, 12 years ago now. But I will say the Overton window itself has shifted a lot. And unfortunately, I will say the right obviously is not perfect and it has its extremes, but for the majority, the people that are front-facing do try to police that. And I have seen that on the left, they've encouraged it. On the other hand, they've encouraged the extremists. And while there are a lot of people on the left that stay quiet and maybe don't agree with everything that's going on and don't agree with the destruction of the ideals of the left that now have moved to the right, truth has become now right-wing for some reason. And we have showed that clip before of that academic speaking about how it has become impossible to also speak within the left and not be ostracized. So all of the people that do try to defend the values and ideals of the left, of a classical maybe, of a classical left or classical liberal way of thinking, they've been completely ostracized, and a lot of them have moved to the right. So I think when we talk about the left, we talk about the forward-facing mainstream media version of the left that now has been captured and allowed itself in a way to be captured by the extremists and by the crazies that once were just in the academic halls saying their crazy Marxist things. Now they've become the ones that speak almost for everybody else. And I will say, same as with the LGBT community and the crazies over there and what has become of the alphabet community, we say all the time, it is up to the people themselves, the ones that don't agree, but still find themselves in that community for some reason, to police the others and to bring back sanity and common sense to their own communities. Because from the other side, I mean, we can criticize it, but at the same time, they will never listen to us either.
Well,
So-
I do want to see a bridge between the left and the right, but it's no longer about bridging with the current left that's over there, because the populists that were on the left have literally left. They're no longer in that party. Even people that may identify as the left don't have prominent roles. The people that have prominent roles on that side and espouse their new ideals are really radicals. What it's going to take for the left to be reformed is the people that left, like an RFK, like a Tulsi Gabbard, like a lot of the social media influencers that used to be on the left and now are on the populist right. It's going to take them going back. Maybe if Gavin Newsom loses in 2028, that will be the opportunity where the left reaches an all-time low and people can now go back there and reform that party and make it a populist party again, because it's no longer the party of the people.
And then the right, we're also seeing there is a civil war happening on the right now for the power and control that comes after Trump. So it's almost like they're in a very similar position, but the left has allowed the common sense voices to be even further moved towards the right, or towards trying to find a new home, because the home that's no longer their home. And also, I mean, we have to mention the boomers and the career politicians that have held on to power and to the structures that they were used to for way too long, that haven't allowed new voices to come in as well. And I will put a lot of blame on the people that want to hold on to that power without letting it go. And on the right, I have seen a bit more of a move towards allowing newer voices to be heard, and independent journalists and commentary people, etc.
Trump managed to make a big tent with populists, neocons were in there as well as libertarians, and that's how he won the election. But there was space for everybody. Now that he's going to be gone soon, there's literally a war over there. Right now, there's still a space for populists, but if they're pushed out from the neocons, they may make an independent party. They may go to the left and try to reform that party. Right now, I would consider myself more of a populist. That's why I speak highly of the right and their ideals, and I'm hoping the populist wing can win out on that party and kind of hold off the neocons and Marco Rubio within that party. That being said, I don't see any hope right now for who is controlling the left. It looks like Gavin Newsom's going to take a serious run with the traditional power block of the radical left. Only once he loses in 2028 is there an opportunity to reform that party. If he wins, I dare to think what's going to happen.
And using the left, or saying the left, is shorthand for the mainstream left. And what we see, not just in America, but in Canada with the liberals and the insanity happening over there. In the UK with also the left, or those who purport to be on the left. Here in Mexico, the left is insane and they're destroying the country. In many other Latin American countries, it has been the left and the communist Marxist ideals that were allowed to come in and then dominate for the longest time, creating dictatorships that has now become the left and how the left is seen. So yes, of course, it's not everybody on the left, but it is shorthand for what we see on the mainstream, I would say. And that, I guess that's why we say the left so much, and the right as well. But I do also see that it contributes to the polarization of, calling the left and the right into this and to that.
Well, I'm also just so disappointed because even though I was non-political, I would have considered myself left-leaning because of the populist ideals, and to see how they've kind of been vanquished from that party. Trump used to be a liberal as well. A lot of people don't know this, and he just took those ideals that they left on the ground and tried to kick out of the party, and that's why the right has the ideals right now. That being said, it's not like he's espousing all those ideals all the time, but the populist right is where populism is right now. I hope the left get that eventually.
And for me, I did become full-on almost conservative.
Yeah, you're very conservative now. I'm very populist, and I think people can see that. I think a lot of people that are former left kind of relate to some of my ideals because they think a lot of these populist ideals are from the left, and traditionally that's kind of where they came from, but they're no longer over there. At least that's how I see it. Yeah. But why don't we read some of Nan's comments, because there's quite a few.
The response from Nan.
And we really do read all the comments, and Nan is a regular viewer, and I always like the input. So I was actually thinking about it for quite a while the last few days.
Non says, oh, I'm not saying there's even a single national politician that fits the bill. Exactly. Sirius also says, listening, so thank you for being here, Sirius. Non says, I'm talking about people like me and others, not politicians. But that's the thing, because the politicians have taken over essentially the political current that is the left, classical liberalism, etc. Now it has become, what everybody else sees, and what represents the people, even though the people might not be in agreement.
The elites have completely taken over the left. On the right, there's still space because they haven't consolidated power, and there's so many factions over there. That's why populism runs strong. That's why there's a lot of former leftists on the right. It took me a long time to say, I'm actually on the right, and I'm actually adopting a lot more conservative ideals and first principles, even though I'm a populist. And I think it makes me much more well-rounded politically and otherwise.
And Non also says there are fractures on the left, just like on the right. People like me have been driven out of the party. And exactly. And there has to be now, and it should be up to the people as well. Like, it shouldn't be up to the elites that control what everybody else thinks or everybody else says or speak for the people either, even though they are put there as, the ones that people voted for. However, why do people keep voting for them if they're no longer speaking for maybe at least the majority, but the silent majority?
Well, and in an election, you really, and especially in an American context, you usually have two decisions. Otherwise, you're kind of throwing your vote away. So you're really voting for the person that has those populist ideals or those ideals that are espoused best by that one politician. And if you have former liberal ideals that are actually saying like anti-war, like pro-worker, like pro-unions,
freedom of speech,
you were going to really vote Trump in the last election. They try to convince you that he was an orange man bad, but he actually had all those ideals that the liberals used to espouse. Now, is the next candidate going to have that? If it's Rubio, no. He's going to try to put on that front that he does, but he's going to lead America into war.
Non also says, correct, we are ostracized, but we don't go to the right, we go green. Yeah, that's it.
I'm always thrown off by going green because the Green Party is usually the third party, but they've been completely ideologically captured by multiple factions, especially in Canada, but the United States as well. So especially in the States, there is no third party. Bernie Sanders was a good representation of populism on the left until he sold out. And I actually really used to like Bernie Sanders.
Non says Dick Cheney is a Democrat.
So is Liz Cheney.
And Non says, okay, you're making a distinction between what the parties actually are right now and what real world definitions of the words are. And that's the thing that has also been lost. And a lot of people get confused, but that is, fortunately or unfortunately, that is the space and the world and the rhetoric that we're living in right now.
Well, and we do political commentary where we talk on probably 50 subject matters a night. So I make generalizations just to speed up the conversation a lot. Yeah. That being said, I mean, if the right goes away from populism, I will stop supporting the right. So I just want to make that clear. And I do call Donald Trump out when he's wrong. But for a candidate like Trump, he does a lot of good and he also does a lot of bad. But most candidates that I see other than Trump before him, they just did a lot of bad and they had one or two good things. So that's one of the big reasons I support Trump, especially because I can put Trump in a mirror to every other Western nation right now. And the ideals that they have espoused is this new left, which is very authoritarian, very elitist, wants to get rid of free speech, is no longer the party of the worker. And if you would have got a Kamala Harris or somebody else other than Trump in there, I think the United States would have looked a lot like Europe is right now.
Yeah. Non also says, I haven't voted for a Democrat or Republican since 2008. And I'll just say what Tim Pool always says, civil war.
Yeah, and I will say,
that's the thing.
Nick Fuentes in the last election said, oh, he's not going to vote for Trump. But you should, at least for me, I would vote for the candidate that is going to be the lesser of two evils in any situation. Not voting, then you can only blame yourself if a Kamala Harris gets in there and completely destroys the country.
And Walker, hello, Walker.
Oh, good to see you, Walker.
Walker said...
Oh, wait, let's talk about one thing. Walker's from El Salvador.
Yes.
I think we didn't have the story, but I was watching a lot of the gossip about Elijah Schaffer recently, who was in El Salvador. And man, we'll probably talk about that on the next show, but...
Because you like the chisme. Like,
Yeah,
I don't like the e-girl chisme drama
Well, there's rumors
as much as you do.
there was rumors his wife went missing in El Salvador. The car got stolen. It looks like his wife just left him with the kids and is getting a divorce now. But people thought she might have been kidnapped in El Salvador. That's not the case.
All allegations, just let people deal with their own drama and stop putting it at the forefront.
Let's get back to Walker.
Walker says, Guy, did you see that Chomsky is in the Epstein files and the leftists are crying?
Yeah, not only Chomsky's in the Epstein files, he's been a lawyer for a certain country for a long time now, but he's just openly admits a lot of this stuff.
Chomsky?
Yeah, no Chomsky. Oh.
No, he's an
Oh
economist.
no, I was thinking about the guy that defended Trump.
Yes. I don't remember.
I can't remember his name.
No, Chomsky is an economist that the left loves, and he has.
But I seen
he has had some pretty radical ideas. Before.
But I had seen he was in the Epstein files as well. But it had been rumored he was in the Epstein files for a long, long time now. When it comes to the Epstein files, and we're kind of delaying getting into the headline story here, but they need to go after these people. And we're going to show a clip on how the mainstream media is trying to portray these Epstein files as we need to focus on the victims. No, we don't need to focus on the victims. We need to focus on the people that actually committed these crimes, give out extremely, extremely harsh punishments so we can get these people to flip on other people and go up the ladder and actually get some retribution here. Now, the victims should get payouts and things like that, but the harm's already been done. What we need to do is kind of root out these elites that are in these satanic PDF rings and things like this, things of this nature.
And hold on, because now I got lost. Trent Briggs says prosecute the Clintons.
Oh, yeah.
But again, presidential immunity for Bill. So
when we're going to get into the Hillary story in just a minute, but there needs to be a strategy here. And the strategy was they didn't release all the Epstein files, but they called the Clintons to testify. That way they wouldn't know what was in the files. The Clintons said, no, we're not going to testify. We'll just do the time in jail. Then the files were released. Now the Clintons think it is safe. So now they're like, okay, we'll testify. That doesn't necessarily mean all the files were released. So if they can get themselves to perjure themselves on the stand, you can get some serious time for them, or you can offer them a plea deal where they're going to flip on other people, and then you can start going up the ranks. What do I think is going to happen? I think they're both going to testify and they're going to plead the fifth, and it's not going to look good for their political career, but it's going to keep them safe in case there's any files that weren't released that would have them perjure themselves.
And Nan says, no tears. Good. And Nan also says Chomsky is a linguist. I do know, I mean, I have some older friends that had a bunch of his books, and I always kind of related him with economics or like political discourse in general. Don't really care that much about it. Hold on, because we do have RUMBLE from Ethel. Ethel, hello. You're here. You're back.
Good to see you.
Ethel says, praising the right too much, you guys. Remember, you shall not make yourself an idol. But
no.
I don't praise anybody specifically on the right. I praise the ideology of the political current of conservatism and of decreasing the size of government and of seeing for people first, and also of maintaining those things that do work and getting rid of those that don't.
Yeah, I got to go with whatever politicians are doing the best at the time. No politician's going to do perfect here right now. The right's the party of populism. That being said, the neocons are making huge strides right now, pushing one populist after another, kind of out of conservatism, whether it's social media influencers or actual politicians. It looks like they're getting ready to leapfrog Marco Rubio over J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is probably the premier populist on the right-hand side. Right now, he might not come off of that because he has to stay in line with Trump, but a lot of his ideals are the most populist ideals that the right wing has right now for a prominent politician.
Ethel says, I think that was praising the left too much back in the days, and look where we are. And I think I haven't, because I've told my story in my Spanish channel a lot, and how like it came to be that I realized what the actual game plan on the left and of the things I was following was, and what they would say behind closed doors in all of these organizing meetings and etc. when I was in Vancouver. I haven't told it that much here, I realized. But yes, I did praise it too much, and now I try to correct.
Well, and I always try to
doing something about it.
I always try to keep an even balance. I mean, even today when we go into the U.S. stories, you're going to see there's negative Trump stories and then there's positive Trump stories. I want to push the administration in the right direction, which is the populist direction, in my opinion. So, all I can do is give fair and balanced. But when it comes to the right, there is good things and there's bad things. On the left, I see almost entirely bad now. The left used to be half and half as well. It's no longer like that.
And Ethel says, Guy, there's a thread sticking out from your left shoulder. You need to cut it off. If you come here, I can take it off.
You're going to take apart my whole shirt there.
It's stuck. I can't. No, now you're going to break your shirt.
Okay, let's leave it there.
Ethel says, and I mean literally, not politically.
Yeah, and thank you for everybody that's leaving comments, because that does help the show have a much better flow.
Yeah.
And we're going to read comments after each section.
And I don't know if I can, let's see if I can read this next Ethel comment, because it's on RUMBLE, so it's not censored, but it says, what do you think about disgusting person coins now, guys? Rah-rah libertarian currency or a Zionist asset and a controlled piece of tech that writes everything to a blockchain log so it's easier to backtrack.
Yeah, we're entering the age of digital currency. And again, I would say no digital currency. Yeah, that would be fantastic. But even regular monetary currency has been so manipulated, whether it's the metal markets or the other markets. When we're going into digital currency here, I just want to maximize freedoms. I don't want a CBDC. A CBDC is completely programmable. They can cancel your bank accounts. They can program that you have to spend your money by a certain time and date, so it keeps the economy moving. I don't want to see a CBDC. Trump is trying to undermine a CBDC with a stable coin because he wants that stable coin to become more of a world currency and have Europeans and Africans choose the American stable coin. The only way they're going to choose the American stablecoin is if it offers more freedoms than these programmable CBDCs. Also, there's Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, it was great in its conception, but it's become much more of a asset to hold and a place to store value rather than to use in a monetary way on a daily basis. Although the guy that used to own Twitter, Jack Dorsey, seems to think it can be cut into much smaller portions and eventually be used as a daily currency, which I'm up for. Maybe a Bitcoin is the best digital currency right now. After that, maybe a stable coin. A CBDC is absolutely the worst you can get. I love gold and I love silver and I love actual hard currencies. I would prefer those over digital currencies, and any nation that's going to have exclusive CBDC digital currency, you can't trust them. And the citizens of those nations need to stand up.
Nan says, I'll tell you what I think will happen. Not one person will go to prison. And I do, unfortunately, think that is, it would be the cost is too high for everybody involved and at the top. Even if they do want to put them in prison, I don't think they probably will. Maybe one or two people that they can put up as, like, the faces of the ones that went to prison.
They're going to have the sacrificial lambs that mean nothing. Trump had these files. I think he still probably has more files. This was the big Achilles heel of a lot of the things what he did. I think it became his Achilles heel intentionally, meaning I think he always had the files, and I think he was using them as leverage over people. Mm-hmm. That's why he was able to get so many good deals in this first year. I mean, he accomplished quite a bit in that first year, but you're like, how is he doing this? I think he was using the Epstein files as leverage. Now, that being said, I don't think anybody's going to actually get prosecuted here other than one or two sacrificial lambs. But what should have happened is they should have went to people, threatened prosecution, and had those people flip and gone up the ladder and kind of exposed the whole web.
And Trent Briggs says, putting Savannah Guthrie in the title might get you lots of views. I mean, I don't want to capitalize on someone's, suffering.
Is that the guy with the Elijah thing?
No, Savannah Guthrie is a reporter for CBS, MSN.
Well, how am I not?
One of those two. But her mother has gone missing.
Oh, I didn't even recognize the name. I'll have to look at the story after the show.
You'll recognize her face. She's pretty famous. Is she in Good Morning? One of those Good Morning shows? I don't know. I don't watch American TV, so I don't know. But I do know she's a reporter of some sort. Nan says, are the Republicans in the files? Yes, of course.
Yeah,
and even just mentioned, and that's the thing, it becomes murky when, yes, a name can appear 5,000 times, but at the same time, is it because it's being mentioned? Is it involved? So people look up names and they see all these hits for names of different people, and yes, some are to blame, and of course, I do believe some Republicans will be involved in disgusting things because they were in positions of power anyways, but there's also names like Elon Musk, who, yes, his name appears. It appears that he got invited to an island, but then he said, no, I don't want to go.
It looks like to me that these files were scrubbed and then they took all the salacious bits that would have no prosecutions but would embarrass people and actually satisfy the public to say, oh yeah, he released 3 million files and it's salacious because this guy's in his underwear and they're talking about crazy things here. But nothing really seems like it will lead to a prosecution at this point.
Because they might have probably already deleted all the most egregious things that could lead to a prosecution.
I don't think he deleted it. I think he's holding on to it. And he's going to continue to use that as
But
leverage.
the Democrats also had possession of them for 4 years, so they might have probably deleted some at least.
Well, I think they were using it as leverage too. Any astute politician is probably going to use this as leverage rather than put everything out into the public, which I absolutely don't agree with, whether it's Trump or the Democrats.
Mm-hmm. Trump Briggs says her mom is missing. Yeah, Savannah Guthrie's mom is unfortunately missing. It won't let me bring it up. And Trump Briggs says NBC.
MSNBC.
NBC.
Oh, NBC.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one of the
Savannah
majors.
Guthrie is from NBC. The Today Show. Thank you.
And I never, I don't
could
watch,
place her somewhere, but
I watch almost no network TV now, unless it's CBS and the UFC's on there.
And Non says, finally tells us what they're going to be eating. Non says, tonight is a treat of a dinner, really good Thai food from the city. I love Thai food. I used to order Thai food. He would go to work on Fridays at night, and I would order Thai food and just watch shows and eat Thai food while I waited for him to get off work.
There used to be a fantastic restaurant in Vancouver called Salad Thai.
Yes.
It's shut down now, but
We used to live next to it.
the owner's son opened up a smaller restaurant. I don't know the name off the top of my head right now. I'll get it for the next show. And if you're ever in Vancouver, I highly recommend that restaurant. It's very good. And man, I used to work right next door at a little bar called the Winking Judge. So we used to eat there all the time, but fantastic, very traditional Thai food.
Yes, I'm a fan of Thai food and Korean, which you don't like. You don't like Korean
Oh,
food.
I hate Korean.
love
All
Korean
that pickled stuff. Can't stand it.
He hates mayo and vinegar as well. So anything that has similar things to that, he won't eat. Sirius says there should be Republicans. It's not the first time. And yeah, again, I do agree. I mean, people in power, be it on whatever side they're going to be in, they're probably involved in some way, or their names at least will appear.
Oh.
And some will probably have done disgusting things too.
Well, no, I will talk about this. There is a lot of European politicians that are kind of being outed that there could possibly be prosecutions. That's where it seems if there are prosecutions, it's going to happen within the EU. That's why we're seeing, especially in the UK, people step down right now, very high-ranking people. One of the big surprises was Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. Epstein was trying to infiltrate these circles. He wasn't able to. They would talk shit on both leaders on how they just couldn't corrupt him or how they couldn't get into their inner circle. They also talked about how they wanted to get Vladimir Putin out of power. They had somebody selected to kind of take his place at the time. But the EU right now has assigned somebody to look into all the Epstein files, to specifically attach Vladimir Putin to any stories and release it to the general public. The big thing is there is not much, if anything, about Vladimir Putin that makes him look bad in the files. Everything I've seen, and he's one of the people I kind of looked into, only makes him look good. But because he had a very close-knit circle and he wouldn't let people in, not to say he's not corrupt.
And I will say, like, allegedly, Putin and Xi Jinping have done similar things. It's just they keep it within their own circle so they can control their own disgusting rings of, power and influence. So.
Yeah, how all these politicians were stupid enough to let an outsider in. They should have kept tight circles.
Walker says, I was just looking for information about him in El Salvador, and I didn't know anything about it until I saw him recently. You saw him? You saw Elijah Schaffer? See, now I'm
Oh, now I'm interested.
Did you see him in El Salvador? That is interesting. 'Cause there's been a bunch of, but again, I don't want to get into the chisme. I don't want to get into the e-girl drama because try to stay away from
If
it.
you do want to know about Elijah Schaffer, who's somebody that did a deep dive on the spot.
All alleged, all chisme.
Yeah, but he breaks down all the kind of facts. He has all the emails, all the videos, stuff like this. His name's Atlas Thugged. He started coming up recently by following Nick Fuentes, but he did a deep dive on this Elijah Schaffer thing, and all the evidence was kind of laid out there.
Alleged.
He actually puts all the
I know, but the evidence still continues to be alleged.
yeah, but all the hard evidence that they have right now that is out there, it's all put into a nice 30-minute segment. So.
Trent Briggs says, Pad Thai good. I love Pad Thai. And there's not that many good Thai restaurants here in Mexico, unfortunately.
No.
And you have to go pretty far out from where we film to actually get there, from where we live.
And here in Mexico City, I don't like to necessarily risk things. I won't risk it a lot. I'll go to either a more high-end restaurant, or if I do a lower-end restaurant, it's very trusted by word of mouth because there aren't those same kind of standards.
Non says, I love that Korean barbecue. Haven't had it since I left Portland and then left Vancouver.
Oh yeah, I also like barbecued pork, Chinese style barbecue pork, and in Chinatown in Vancouver. I just love that stuff.
Sirius says, oh, now we're getting more people letting us know what they're cooking. Sirius says, I'm making mac and cheese right now. That's more my speed of what I can cook. I used to cook pretty well. I used to make curries and meats and a bunch, but now I don't cook that much because I'm editing most of the time.
Yeah, I almost made mac and cheese earlier, but it really makes me extremely bloated every time I eat it. It makes me tired as well.
I tolerate carbs, I think, a lot better than you. Walker says, sorry, I saw the information. English is not my mother tongue. No, it's okay. Don't worry. I was just surprised if you had actually seen Elijah Schaffer because you are there. Hold on. A few more from Ethel, and then we'll get into personality politics finally. Ethel says, I guess my question about PDF coin did not land. There's a new rumor that Epstein is behind the disgusting people coin success. Did you check it out?
No, I haven't seen anything on that, but now that you mention it, I'll look into it after the show.
And Ethel says, silver and gold are going down the drain. Everything is manipulated. And the thing is, they wanted to retank it again.
Yeah, no,
I think it's going to go up again.
They're trying to retank it. They need to get control of the markets. Basically, the American metals market was in collusion with a lot of politicians and big banks, and they controlled that market for decades and decades and decades, and it was a huge point of leverage. It recently went up because there's a war between, I would say, China, Russia, and the United States to actually free that market. That being said, it went up to 115. The Americans are trying to get back control of that market. I think they're making one final grasp because they were able to tank it to 85. But even at 85, that's still almost triple of what it used to be, because I bought a lot of silver right before we moved to Mexico, and we bought it at $28 an ounce. So even at 85, it's really high. It's going to climb right back up to over 100 over the next few months. They're not going to be able to tank it. Why do I know this? Because a lot of corporations have over the last couple months and are continuing to come into Mexico to go directly to the mines or the headquarters in Mexico City and make big offers for all the silver coming out of these mines.
Because Mexico has the highest amount of silver mines in the world.
In the world, yeah.
And we don't take advantage of it, but whatever. And just really quickly.
And they want to buy it before it actually goes on the market, and they're willing to pay way over market price. The reason they're willing to pay over market price is because they know the market price is going to go right back up. The Americans have lost control of that market, I think. And especially with Trump making all kinds of strategic national security deals for future metals and investing in mining, which he's done over the last few days, that's only going to pump the market even more.
And Walker says, and then we'll get into personality politics and Hillary Clinton. Walker says, Nat, I just wanted to say that I really laugh at the Senora Billie Eilish now.
We're going to get into that, actually.
Because now there's even a law firm involved to maybe take her away from the stolen land her mansion is on. So
yeah. Oh, and I wanted to say one more thing about the silver market. Sorry. Yeah, recently it went from 115 to 80 or 85. And when it did, the markets are selling massive amounts of metals because people want to get a hold of anything they can at that price. They literally sold double the paper silver that they actually have available to them just because the price went so low. So I expect it to go extremely high over the next 12 months. Okay, let's get into personality politics.
Yes, I'm also laughing about Benito or Bad Bunny, because he's going to be headlining the Super Bowl. Of course, I will talk about it in English and Spanish. And his ridiculous, I forgot how English works. I forgot how to speak. I don't know the word in English, but he does. He speaks perfect English. He's done interviews in English. Sorry, he annoys me very much. Let's get into personality politics.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And yes, the two most prominent personalities right now on deck are Hillary and Bill. From Wall Street Ape's quote, Heritage Foundation exposes Hillary Clinton was directly behind getting the European Union to use their Digital Services Act to pressure Elon Musk and America back into censorship. And this is, again, why the prominent left continues to forget about their values.
Well, why is Hillary Clinton pressuring the EU to use the Digital Services Act, which they are en masse $4 billion fines trying to get these companies in line, along with a lot of other nations. But Hillary was one of the first people to suggest that they do this. I wonder why, because her and her husband's names coming out all over the Epstein files, but also she's just very pro-censorship. And I would say the state of the current left, they all want mass censorship, especially in the EU. They don't want populism coming up. We have another story later about how they've rigged 8 elections in the EU in very recent times, and that evidence is starting to come out.
This is law professor Jonathan Turley.
Free speech isn't a free fall in Europe. There are 2 anti-free speech movements that have coalesced. One is in Europe, where it has laid waste to free speech. Germany, France, England, free speech has been eviscerated. And also places like Canada. The U.S. anti-free speech movement began in higher education, then metastasized throughout the government. But this has all reached our shores now. The Berlin World Forum followed the remarks of Vice President Vance on free speech, and the EU was red hot. They gathered in Berlin, and it was the most anti-free speech gathering I've ever been part of. There's only 2 of us from the free speech community. And they are committed. And, Hillary Clinton was there, and she really fueled the anger. I mean, when Twitter was purchased by Elon Musk, she called on the EU to use the infamous Digital Services Act, which is one of the most anti-free speech pieces of legislation in decades. And she called upon the EU to use the...
No.
Yeah, and if it comes back up, keep playing it. But they're using the Digital Services Act to attack these private social media companies to get them to abide to international law, whether that be the EU, the UK, or Australia. Because they're based in the US, you would think they would abide by free speech law, but they're hitting them with so many fines. They're hoping they can change the basic constitutional values of which these social media companies and the country they exist in.
DSA to force the censorship of American citizens, force people like Musk to censor. It's an extraordinary act by someone who was once a presidential candidate in the United States. But they are committed to it. And after the World Forum, they further globalized this effort, and they are threatening companies like X with ruinous fines unless they resume censoring American citizens.
Yeah, and Trump, Elon Musk can kind of stand up to this right now because he has Trump backing him. It actually takes both Musk, the owner of the social media company, taking a hard stand, along with Trump, who's using the Granite Act to really push back in every single way, shape, or form when the EU comes with these tyrannical laws. That being said, Musk can push back as much as he wants. If Trump is removed in 2028 and you have somebody like a Gavin Newsom, they're no longer going to protect X, and X will either go bankrupt or have to fold and change their policies, which I am not looking forward to. We've seen what happened under Biden. There was massive collusion behind the scenes with the FBI and the CIA really putting pressure on these private companies to bring in censorship.
But let's also remember the Twitter files. These tactics were already trying to be employed not only in Twitter when it used to be Twitter, but also Facebook. Zuckerberg has come out and said that they visited his office and that he had to comply because he's a weakling, and many other social media companies as well. But the biggest American ones were also receiving threats from the inside, from America itself, telling them, shut up and censor your people.
Yeah, I don't see very many politicians on the left-hand side of the aisle right now speaking about free speech and how it's so important. I see them speaking about, especially on an international scale, it's all about hate speech and protected classes. Even in the States where free speech is the strongest probably of any nation in the world, they're able to bring specialty classes in, and that restricts the speech somewhat. Now, they haven't been successful in bringing hate speech laws in because of the First Amendment. That being said, they're going to really try to hit these private companies with the Digital Services Act if the Democrats get in 2028. And they've learned from the Twitter files, don't do it directly. Just assist the EU in doing it and bankrupt these social media companies.
And a lot of their little globalist political theater is falling apart a little bit, at least, with things coming, social media becoming a lot more democratizing of information and democratizing information for the people, independent journalists, commentary that before used to be able to be censored by, only having mainstream media available, and things like this coming up. And this is why they get so worried all the time. From Nick Sortor, quote, Bill and Hillary Clinton have now agreed to testify in the House Epstein investigation, per the New York Times. This comes 2 days prior to a vote in the House to hold them in criminal contempt for ignoring the subpoena, make the testimony public, no closed-door hearings,
Yeah,
which probably will happen.
if the United States wasn't in the picture with free speech and these social media companies existed within the United States, and let's just say the EU was the primary international law or the ruling on hate speech, I don't think these Epstein files could even be released. They're so heavy-handed on their free speech laws now. You can take an issue like immigration. In certain countries, if you speak about immigration in a negative way, it's considered hate speech and you can be arrested. Therefore, a lot of politicians aren't allowed to speak about that issue in their platform, even if it's one of their primary pillars of their traditional platform. They can consider a lot of these Epstein files to be hate speech.
That too.
If it was up to the EU. Luckily, it's not right now, and this is happening under Trump, and we still have X in there, but
speaking of the EU and people involved in the files, now from Mukhtar, I guess, Prince Edward was asked about his older brother, Andrew Mountbatten.
oh wait, go back to the last story. We didn't really cover it.
Yeah, we did.
Go back to the last story.
I can't. I
oh,
already
you
closed
can't.
it.
Okay, I wanted to cover it a little bit more, but
Well, that they're going to be testifying?
yeah. Basically, yeah. They originally said they weren't going to testify because they were being hauled in front of a congressional hearing, much like Steve Bannon was. Steve Bannon also refused to testify about the January 6th incident. He was given quite a few months in jail. The same exact thing was expected to happen to Hillary. Bill would have probably fallen under presidential immunity. Now that the files have been released, or what we think is going to be released is released, Bill and Hillary have got a chance to take a look at them. They think it's safe to testify on these things. The question is, are they going to plead the Fifth Amendment, or are they going to give actual good testimony about questions that are asked? If they just plead the Fifth, it's going to absolutely destroy their political reputation for the future and their daughters.
And concurrently, in the UK, going back to the princes, an ex-prince, let's see what Prince Edward said about his brother.
No, actually, this clip is less about what Prince Edward says. It is important what he says, and we're going to go into this. But if you look for this clip on X, you usually find the one where it's just his answer, not the actual question that's being asked. And the question that's being asked is actually the important thing. They're trying to frame this thing about, we need to focus on the victims. It's all about the victims. We need restitution for the victims. And all mainstream platforms are kind of giving that same perspective. No, I want to focus on the people that committed these crimes and who was attached to them. And we want retribution. We want people to be prosecuted, and not just a slap on the wrist. We want them to be prosecuted to such an extent that they'll flip on other people that are in these networks. I don't think that's going to happen. And that's why they're framing the questions in the way that they are.
This is an important question to ask, and I want to ask it in the context of what we've seen from their majesties and their response, and they're saying that we should be focused specifically on the experience of the victims. The palace has been very, very clear on that. We've just heard some commentary from Prime Minister Keir Starmer as well, and bearing that in mind, and he's saying that there needs to be assistance for the victims. And I wonder what you think of this, because it is so close to home, clearly very difficult, and I know you've put in various plans in place to move the institution forward, but how are you coping with that?
Well, with the best will in the world, I'm not sure this is the audience that is probably the least bit interested in that. So they all came here to listen to about education solving the future. But no, I think it's all really important always to remember the victims. And who are the victims in all this?
I don't want to talk about this. The audience doesn't want to hear about this. But if we are going to talk about it, let's talk about the victims, and let's forget about the people that committed the crimes and the prosecutions that people want to have happen here. This is absolutely ridiculous, the stance that these elites are taking. I want to see prosecutions on these things. The entire world wants to see prosecutions on these things. I think there's definitely an undertone here where if you want to climb up the ranks of a lot of these political institutions, other politicians want to have leverage on you. So they want to have files on you. They want to have things on camera on you.
Because that's the way it's always worked.
Whether it's things with children or things with the LGBTQ community, stuff like that. They want to have dirt on you so they can pull your card at any time and that you know you have a master.
It's useful for them.
Yeah.
Also, we saw, what was it, like a week and a bit ago, funnily enough, before they decided to go actually talk to the committee, we saw Hillary Clinton write an essay in The Atlantic, which The Atlantic has completely fallen apart, in my opinion, a long, long time ago, and it's completely biased. But she published this essay in The Atlantic about empathy and about the importance of empathy given what's happening with ICE and all the protests and how they're, destroying families and, the same kind of rhetoric that they've been using wrongly, in my opinion. But from CBS News says, quote, Hillary Clinton says MAGA is waging war on empathy and criticized Christian conservative commentator Alibeth Stuckey for her concept of toxic empathy, which she writes about in her book, arguing that empathy has become a tool of manipulation by progressives. Completely agree. I wanted to play the Alibeth Stuckey response to the Hillary Clinton essay, but let's just hear it from here. It's faster.
Hillary Clinton says MAGA is waging war on empathy. In an Atlantic article, Clinton criticized Christian conservative influencer Alibeth Stuckey for her concept of, quote, toxic empathy, unquote. Here is my conversation with Stuckey about that and a lot more. Toxic empathy, what an oxymoron.
Well, pause it really quick. I just wanted to say one thing about this, and this is the narrative they're trying to push across the entire left in the EU, in the UK, in Canada. Is this empathy? We need empathy for immigrants. Well, that line would have worked to guilt trip people into accepting more immigrants, but it's too late now. You've literally flooded these nations with immigrants. There's grape gangs. The crime rate is high. It's getting rid of the basic culture and identity of these countries. People are no longer going to be empathetic to kind of this line of.
Well, but a lot of people have also been propagandized and trained on, as Dr. Gadsad says, suicidal empathy. So everybody has been trained to have this nonstop empathy. And what Hillary Clinton was doing too in her essay was going against Alibeth Stuckey and Christians that are saying, hey, we're not going to let you propagandize us into using a fake empathy for your political motives.
Yeah, but they know this. This is how they think they're going to finish this wave of immigration that's going to kind of conquer a lot of these Western countries. And they're going directly after Gadsad. I've seen 3 articles today talking about the cancellation of Gadsad. Suicidal empathy doesn't actually exist. This is a made-up concept by Gadsad. I mean, they're going after him because that concept of suicidal empathy kind of was the pre-context to shut this idea out that Hillary Clinton wants to get out in the mainstream.
But also, it's very rich coming from Hillary Clinton saying that MAGA has a war on empathy. What did her and her husband have been doing for the past who knows how many decades now?
Madam Clinton writes, I don't know if the phrase reflects moral blindness or moral bankruptcy, but either way, it's appalling. Alibeth Stuckey, she's talking about you specifically. How do you want to respond?
She is. She didn't really take the effort to try to understand my argument. And actually, the subtitle of my book explains it pretty well, how progressives exploit Christian compassion. This is not a demonization of compassion or even all empathy. It is to say that our empathy can be wielded in the wrong direction by people who want us to not critically think, not ask questions, and simply to feel our way through politics. And I think that there's a better and more loving and more thoughtful way for us to choose our leaders and to decide on policy.
Definitions matter. How do you define sympathy as opposed to empathy?
Yeah, sympathy means feeling for someone. Compassion means to suffer with someone. Kindness is usually an action, and I would define love as seeking the best interest of someone. But empathy literally means to be in someone's feelings, which could be helpful and lead you toward kindness, but it can also be
Let's
very
pause it for a
blinding.
quick second, just because it's a long clip, and we'll continue with it. But the United States of America, just by the numbers, is the most empathetic nation on earth. They had the largest mass immigration, legal mass immigration in human history for decades and decades and decades. They have been the leader for immigration of any nation on earth. But you're saying it's not enough. You also have to take all the illegal immigrants. And if you don't do that, you're not an empathetic nation. But it's the illegal immigration that is absolutely destroying the nation, destroying the culture. And we can see what happens if you fast forward this. Just look at the EU.
If you feel so deeply what someone else feels, you can forget that there are other people involved in this moral equation. You can even be blinded to objective reality and morality. So that's the problem, I think, with the nature of empathy, is that it actually has the ability to eclipse our critical thinking.
In that piece in The Atlantic, Hillary Rodham Clinton again talks about you in this way. This commissar of MAGA morality targets other evangelicals whose empathy, she warns, has left them open to manipulation. Maybe, she writes, they recognize the humanity of an undocumented immigrant family and decide that mass deportation has gone too far. Or, she writes, they make space in their heart for a young rape survivor forced to carry a pregnancy to term and start questioning the wisdom and morality of total abortion bans. It's all toxic to Stuckey.
This is actually a perfect example of what toxic empathy is. We should see the humanity of someone who is an illegal immigrant. That should not lead us to being against deportations or to open up the border. We should have compassion for the woman who was raped and who is carrying a child. That should not lead us to justifying killing that child. Basically, the position there is that the child should get the death penalty for a crime that he or she did not commit. And so, yes, that is my point, that we should see the humanity and have compassion for these individuals without allowing us to support policies that I believe are very destructive.
Diagram, if you will, for me, the moral equations for an undocumented immigrant arriving at our border, poor, famished, needing assistance.
Yeah, there are legal ways to claim asylum, and I am open to that. I want people to be able to claim asylum in a way that is legal. I want people to be able to claim refugee status in a way that is legal, and we have pathways to do that. Many countries have pathways to do that. But I also care about the legal immigration process. I have seen legal immigrants walk through that very difficult, years-long process, and I want justice for them. I want fairness for them. I do not think it's right, nor do I think it should be legal to cut the line to come here illegally.
Okay, pause it for a quick second again, and I'll say this. People like Hillary Clinton and a lot of people on the left were looking at the right and seeing soft-ass Christianity, which they thought they can conquer with this idea of empathy. But with this more hardline Christianity coming out saying, no, there are red lines and there are things we're not going to cross and we do need to have a strong nation, this just isn't working. And they feel really intimidated by it because they don't know how to approach it. They thought they were going to destroy Christianity and walk all over that voting block by having this idea of empathy, not just on immigration, but on a lot of things.
And again, I do think, and then we put it in the section of Hillary Clinton because she wrote this essay before a lot of the things that are now happening with the Epstein files and them actually deciding to go testify, and who knows what will come out of it. We put this in here because of the contrast of what they actually have done in the country and now asking for empathy and saying that MAGA has a war on empathy, when in reality, their conduct and the way that the Clintons have behaved and the lies that they have told and the things that they have done that we know and the ones that we don't know about is even more ridiculous once you see that they're also trying to go after Christians and Christianity and actual empathy, using and couching the whole ideology as they have for so long under the whole, you have to feel bad for these people, and that's the only way you should think. You don't use critical thinking. Don't think about what we did. Don't critically think about what the Clintons did.
Yeah, it's good to see Christianity actually starting to grow a backbone and engage in politics a little bit. It's not to say Christianity needs to take over all politics, but there needs to be some pushback because for a long time, they were just being walked right over by the globalists. And the globalists thought they had a script because they knew if anybody was going to oppose them, it was probably going to be Christianity. And they thought they had that script of empathy. And now a new kind of Christianity that actually has a backbone is standing up for nationalism.
Do you want to finish the clip?
No, we can kind of leave it there if you want. And then we can continue on. I think
with this, I just wanted to recommend also, because I just ran into this, given this whole controversy, Stephanie Tyler wrote this essay, I would call it. I don't know what I would call it. Article, I guess, on X. It's called The Problem with Speaking Your Truth, and it goes into the whole Hillary Clinton essay in The Atlantic. It says, the one accusing half the country of waging a war on empathy, where she positions her empathy itself as a dividing line between moral legitimacy and moral rot. The piece, while predictable and nakedly manipulative, exemplifies a familiar maneuver, the substitution of emotional alignment for argument and moral accusation for analysis. Empathy in Clinton's framing isn't just a human capacity to be exercised with judgment or limits, it's a loyalty test. You either feel the sanctioned emotions in response to the approved narrative, or you are positioned as morally suspect. Compassion becomes the metric by which political opponents are judged, not by what they believe or propose, but by whether they exhibit the approved emotional response. Disagreement isn't treated as a difference in the interpretation of priorities, it's treated as evidence of ethical failure. And I will recommend, if you are interested in that, about the essay and how the left has been, mostly the left, again, the left, has been using, or progressives have been using emotions and emotional manipulation to propagandize against, using them in a political way instead of just as emotions and just for what they actually are.
Yeah, and I think we say this all the time. The new modern left or the woke left really focuses on making the emotional argument, so you don't really dig into the logical argument. And the right has become very logical. That's why men are typically drawn to the right for the most part, and women are generally drawn to the left. I think that's how it is these days.
Speaking of empathy, also, you put this one in there. From Kana, quote, "This has to be the most hilarious part of the Epstein files. Bill Clinton gets Hillary pregnant. Hillary calls Bill from her office and starts screaming about the unwanted pregnancy. Bill remains quiet throughout the call and says, 'Who's speaking?'" What is this from?
And there's a couple things in the Epstein files about Bill and Hillary, but I just wanted to give an example of one of them because we are talking about Hillary today. So why don't you just read the kind of transcript that we had here?
Okay, so Hillary Clinton goes to her doctor for a checkup only to find out that she's pregnant. She's furious. Here she is, because, I mean, she's pretty old. Here she is in the middle of dealing with this Libyan mess. Now this has to happen to her. She calls home. Bill gets Bill on the phone and immediately starts screaming, "You bastard. How have you let this happen? What's with all that's going on right now? How do you get me pregnant? How could you? I cannot believe this. Just found out I'm 5 weeks pregnant and it's all your fault. Well, what have you got to say?" There's nothing but dead silence on the phone. She screams again, "Did you hear me?" Finally, she hears Bill's very, very quiet voice in a very barely audible whisper, "Who's speaking?" Is this real?
And then there was another file in there about Trump and Bill. Now that one's very much more salacious. So,
well, I think this one might have been satire.
Oh, okay.
But either way, funny. Hold on, let me move on to the next.
Because I was trying to look for, I just wanted to give one example of the files that were in there. Now, I mean, you would have thought the other one was satire, and that's been 100% confirmed. Mm-hmm. So the other one was that Bubba, which is Bill Clinton's nickname in all of these emails, everybody knows Bubba is Bill Clinton, gave fellatio to Donald Trump. That was...
I know it's true, but it's gross.
Yeah, but I didn't necessarily...
I mean, I know that came up.
I didn't want to bring up that file, and you would have said that was fake as well, so...
I know. No, I'm not saying it's fake. It's the person wrote underneath it, "This is satire."
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that part. My bad.
He gathers the stories sometimes. So just correcting the narrative. But, I mean, funny. From Ollie London, British singer Kate Nash, and now we're moving away, I guess, a little bit from the files. From Ollie London, quote, "British singer Kate Nash says she had to create an OF, I cannot say the name, after losing money from touring. The singer, who staged a Free Palestine protest at one of her concerts in 2025, said she sells pictures of her money on the platform to sustain integrity after losing tens of thousands of dollars from touring. The singer revealed to ITV News that she has had to sell pictures online to fund her tours."
Yeah, and this is
well, then stop touring. Then.
Well, this is a little bit ridiculous, and giving this advice to young people that are just getting into the industry and saying these are the only ways to fund your dreams. This is completely fraudulent. There are many conservative rappers. Oh God, I forgot his name.
Tom McDonald.
Tom McDonald is a good example of how you can use social media to kind of come up organically. Let's play this. The interview. It comes more near the end of the interview where she brings up the OF, but absolutely insane.
An OnlyFans account.
Oh, I wanted to avoid the word. Hold on.
It's fine.
Which I'm still running. I sell pictures of my bum online to subsidise, the losses that I make from paying for 3 band members, a lighting engineer, a sound engineer, tour manager, a guitar tech and a photographer. Like, these aren't flashy shows, but there is a certain integrity that I want to be able to sustain in my shows. And I think 20 years into my career, with the cultural impact that I've made.
20 years.
I want to maintain integrity, so I have an account where I basically trade in all my integrity.
Sell myself, yeah.
The success that I have, the thousands of tickets that I can sell, I'm within my rights to protect that integrity and put on a certain standard of a show. But if I can't do it, where do the younger artists that come from working class backgrounds, particularly, that have no disposable income to put up front, which is what you need money up front from a major label, from your parents, or from your OnlyFans account to be able to put on shows, which is actually something I consider to be work. an OnlyFans account.
100
Maybe just quit. Like if you were not able to sustain it, maybe, you know, stop doing that and find a better job where you don't have to show yourself.
This is coming from an old, antiquated generation that just doesn't know how to survive in the modern world other than to make these accounts where she's literally plastering herself all over the internet. There's an easy way to do this. I see a lot of musicians that I don't even listen to their music, but they make videos on their daily life and then how they're making music and then how they're distributing their music, their struggles, and that builds an attachment with the audience. So you can kind of grow a fan base that way. You're really having to use YouTube, social media, and kind of project yourself outside of just music on who you are as a person and what your struggles are so people can attach themselves with that. And that's a good way to kind of come up. You don't need your parents. You don't need OF or anything else to fund these things.
In contrast, however, Billie Eilish has been virtue signaling all the way since the Grammys, and now consequences have come. From Marian Alpha, quote, a law firm in LA just offered to evict Billie Eilish from her house for free on behalf of the Tongva tribe, on top of which her house sits. Why? Because the Grammy singer said she lives on stolen land. Now the firm says that there's enough to file a legal claim and take the house back. They've already written the 30-day notice and say that it's ready to go. Also, ironically, the Sinai law firm.
Well, yeah, he's ready to go with this. The big question is Billie Eilish going to contact the tribe privately and kind of give a payout?
No. It's become too much of a social media thing for it to go away by itself.
If I were Billie Eilish, what I would do is contact the tribe privately, have a non-disclosure agreement, offer $500,000 or even $1 million, and then have some public event where you're with them. But this is kind of taken out behind the scenes. You don't want this thing to continue to grow on social media like it is.
No, and then
if she has the tribe endorse her, this whole thing goes away.
It's not fully the tribe that's going after her. It was like a law firm doing a joke saying, oh, we're ready to kick her out if that's what they want us to do. The tribe isn't actually going
but the law firm's now attempting to contact the tribe. I don't see if you've seen the... Yeah.
But, I mean, it'll continue to spiral because she hasn't taken back her claims. She hasn't really come out to say much. And at the same time, we do have reporters, independent and not independent reporters, going to her front gate and saying and showing how much of an armament it is to try to get into her house. I will say, and we do talk about this, for example, with relation to what's happened with First Nations tribes in British Columbia, where they have actually tried to go after and actually won cases where they are now owners of the land on top of which other people's houses are sitting on. So, I mean, there is a worrying trend of this.
It's not just a worrying trend. You seem to think this is some kind of joke. This tribe...
Well, no, I'm saying the lawyer and the law firm are doing it as a joke.
I don't think so.
It could be enforceable, but I'm saying that they haven't said that they will.
It's 100% more than enforceable. Why? Because this is in the state of California. Mm-hmm. If you get a woke judge on that stand and that tribe actually brings this, they're going to use this as not only a precedent, but a public precedent so they can set this example, even if the case gets overturned later. So I think there's very much something that could happen from this.
Maybe, and we do see the UNDRIP and from the UN UNDRIP that is being used in British Columbia and other now provinces in Canada to take property rights away from regular people and give it to First Nations tribes that will then, help the current government.
Okay, we can go to the next story.
That was it.
You start talking about UNDRIP and everything. People don't know the context for a lot of this, so I don't really want to explain it right now, but we do go into it a lot. Yeah. Basically, they're taking private property rights away through First Nation tribes and land acknowledgements within British Columbia, and the precedent has already been set. They're looking to set the precedent across all of Canada now. So it's already happened in Canada. It could very easily happen in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And Mexico.
Okay, let's go into any comments.
Non says, that clip might be one of my favorite cuts. I've definitely had enough of celebs. The Alex Jones song. I forgot the name. Nick Luxco, something like that. That's who made it 6 years ago.
I can't believe I brought that Hillary Clinton document in, which was fake. Oh my God.
That's why you go down and read the comments. Usually I go through them before we actually use them, but today I didn't have time.
I was pressed for time and I needed an example of...
Just take it from people that actually do
Yeah.
And as I say, always doubt everything you see, especially now.
When you're gathering 50 stories for a show, I will always make retractions. And on that story, I'll make a retraction.
That's why I wanted to put that up front. Sirius says, why are they treating the EU like the world police? Because they think they are, and yet they have no might to back that up. The US, Russia, and China are the only ones who actually have the military might to even try to be the world police. And they're kind of not wanting to do that anymore, at least the US.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, we brought up this article about the metrosexual military. This was an article written back in 2004, and the European Union really viewed the world, and the elites in Europe viewed the world in this manner, that the military was going to become metrosexual, and it was all about larger alliances, and that it was about international law, and that's how they would enforce everything around the world, and they would become the center of the world and the shining example. That whole thing is being proven to be 100% false. Russia, China, the United States that can actually manufacture their own weaponry and enforce their own idea of what international law is are quickly becoming the world powers. Well, the European Union outsourced their energy needs, outsourced their manufacturing needs, outsourced
to the other world powers,
outsourced their military needs to the United States, China, and Russia. And now they can't stand on their own 2 feet. And their idea of their metrosexual military is completely falling apart.
But because they're losing power now, they're trying to do it through, I guess, soft power or political power in censorship and in going after the US, social media companies, especially free speech, because people can now complain about them and show the true reality of what it is to both live in those countries, but also what they're doing with regards to continuing to try to grasp the power.
Well, they can't attack Donald Trump or the United States because of the First Amendment, but they can come after X and private companies and hurt their bottom line and try to put them out of business. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. If they can influence these social media companies to change their speech behavior, basically they are running international law. And Hillary Clinton was one of the big people that put up this framework and is recommending the EU kind of attack the American social media companies by these means.
Mm-hmm. And Ron says, hello, go follow the Bradley's Fun at Follow the Bradley's Fun. Thank you for being here. How are you, Ron?
Oh, I was actually watching your show the other day, and you had some very good clips of Disney World because they're doing restructuring of Disney World and building some stuff. Yeah, I really liked when you put the clips up there.
And Ron says, evening, Guy and Nat. Evening, thank you for being here. Non says, apparently speech isn't free if you criticize a certain little tiny tourist territory. Any criticism is hate speech. Well, several of them. And that's the thing. That's the problem with hate speech laws, that they will be implemented to censor truth, facts, and things that are uncomfortable for those in power.
Yeah. And I mean, speech, you really have two speech. You have the speech laws that are within your country, whether it's the United States or Europe or Canada or here in Mexico, and they vary somewhat. The United States has the best free speech protection because of the First Amendment. That being said, you also have that secondary layer of speech, which is online speech. And you have these countries really battling for control over online speech. A lot of these companies are based out of America because they want the most protection possible through the First Amendment. The problem is a lot of these EU countries and Canada are trying to find these social media companies and put them out of business, or at least the ones that they don't like, because they're not going to touch Blue Sky. They're not going to touch Facebook or some of these other companies that they like.
And Follow the Bradleys, Ron asks, what are your thoughts on Nicki Minaj's latest posts on X? I was trying to look into that just now, but
yeah, she's been doing some raps with people within the administration. Yeah, I've liked, if that's the post that he's talking about, she's been posting quite a bit. I like that. And she recently got citizenship through the Trump administration. I think she used the gold card program where it's the $1 million. I think, don't quote me on that though. But yeah, I like the fact that she is a major figure and that she is kind of making it okay to align yourself with the other side, which is the right wing, because typically people in Hollywood, that's the death of you if you do that.
Oh, she was going after a bunch of other rappers, artists, etc., saying Chrissy Teigen might be a man, which I agree with, and stuff about Jay-Z and etc.
Well, she has the Epstein files on her side right now, so she might be using a lot of that as cannon fodder, which I don't mind at all.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, as I've said with other, for example, ladies that now claim to be Christians. I mean, I do believe Nicki Minaj a bit more because she has been speaking about it even before she aligned more with the right. But just, know where people are coming from and don't, once again, fully believe anything anybody ever tells you, including you and I.
Well, and also I just take it as a one-off, not as her as a big celebrity. If I like what she says, then I like what she says, but it doesn't really influence me because she's a celebrity or a singer or something like that. And I think that veil's been kind of pushed back, and people don't look up to people in the movies or superstars or singers the way that they used to, or even sports stars.
Mm-hmm. But I will say it does seem, I haven't looked into all of them, but it did seem like she was going hard against a lot of, prominent people within the elite.
Well, if she is going hard against these people, I really do hope she's actually using hard evidence that's in the Epstein files, especially I hear Jay-Z's name's in there a lot.
Yeah. Rafa, hello, Rafa. Rafa says, hello, I see a lot of comments today. Yes. Thank you all for all your comments as well. Sirius says...
And Rafa had the first comment on one of our videos the other day.
Yes. Sirius says, yeah, I cannot stand with the neoconish BS.
Yeah, and the neocons are just very slyly taking over the right, which was really... populism was really dominating the right when Trump first got in there. But you're seeing the neocons push one social media influencer out after another and kind of reforming a lot of the social media influencers that are kind of in the space now. And then on top of that, they're pushing out populist politicians and replacing them for neocons. They're trying to change their rhetoric into this new idea of what a neocon is, though. And a lot of people aren't catching on to that.
Oh, hold on. I don't know if we're still on... I don't know if we're still on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Yes?
On my phone, we are. Because it's playing here.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, because someone said that there was no sound, and then I tried to figure out why, and I exited out, but we're still here. Okay.
Okay.
That had never happened to me.
Let me turn it up just to make sure there is sound.
That scared me.
Yeah, we're still on YouTube.
Because Luna says, hi, your second stream has no sound. But
That might be RUMBLA.
no, because Ethel would have said something, I guess. Oh, yes. Ethel said no audio.
Okay, let's just continue.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know. I'll try to fix it as we continue. Hold on. Everybody's saying hi to each other. Sirius says, wow, did she psychologically attack our intelligence? What an insult.
Who was that?
Hillary, I'm guessing.
Oh, Hillary, yeah.
With the MAGA empathy thing.
And she's been doing that from day one. The fact that when she was trying to run for the presidency, it was just absolutely ridiculous. She is a traditional neocon, only she's a liberal. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Non says, U.S. foreign policy in the South causes mass illegal migration. Corporations knowingly use their labor to keep their wages down. The system deserves more criticism and real accountability.
Well, and that is a fantastic point because illegal immigration, in the traditional sense, was always pushed by the right. Now, forward facing, when politicians would talk about illegal immigration, they would say no, 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 no. But all their donors from big corporations wanted illegal immigration, so they would never enforce it. Only recently, when Trump came in and populism came up, did the right really push back against illegal immigration. And it's funny how the left really has adopted illegal immigration as one of their big pillars because that's their voting bloc now. And that's why they get rid of voter ID, and it's so easy to vote in a lot of these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. They want to make sure illegals can vote.
And Sirius says, LMAO, eyelash. None says, OMG, this is hilarious. Wow, I'm guessing about that fake story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fake though. Let me know if it worked now on RUMBLE. I'm going to try to exit and go back in. And we'll see what happens.
Okay, and let's go into
because I did want to read all the RUMBLE ones.
Okay, do you want me to log in on RUMBLE?
Yes, let me try it again, and let me see if I don't actually lose the chats from there, because I wanted to respond to Ethel. Let me try to start it again, and let me know if it works, people on RUMBLE. I'm guessing there will be now 2 streams that are called the same. Ethel says, if it does work. Ethel says, hold on.
I can't get Rumble to work right now. Why don't you just leave it and we'll just continue on YouTube?
Okay.
Okay.
Let me just read the Ethel chats. Either way, says Putin and Xi do not speak English too comfortably to visit any islands, and why would they? Xi has 500 million Chinese women in China and can get all the top Chinese models. No peasant island can beat it. And that's why I think they weren't on the fight.
Well, and the fact that American politicians and EU politicians were just so easily infiltrated, it's just crazy. But I think it's not about American politicians or Western politicians about being easily infiltrated. It's more about, in order to climb the ladder, you have to be compromised so other politicians have something over you. Otherwise, they won't trust you and they won't allow you to advance up the ladder.
And Ethel says, Nat, for the gist of life, please do not use Newspeak. There are no First Nations on Earth or in Canada, Aboriginals or Indians. That's why they have been called for ages. No reason to alter. The thing is, sometimes people don't know what you're talking about in Canada.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing I would say about the elites having to have leverage over somebody else in order to advance up. We made a video on Melania Trump the other day, and I was talking a little bit about Barron in that. And I think Donald Trump and Melania have really insulated him very well, made sure he hasn't been compromised and only certain individuals are around him, so he can't be compromised. So if he ever is president one day, people won't have leverage over him. And I think that will be a big selling point for Barron if he ever runs for president. I really don't think people are going to have leverage over him because I think Trump specifically protected him more than any of his other sons.
But we'll see what happens there. Let's move on to health. Is it health?
Health, MAHA,
health,
and education.
MAHA, and education.
And it's pretty big today, that section.
Yeah.
But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing.
And starting with something nobody likes, but is necessary to do. And apparently there's dark stuff here. The dentist from Financial Dystopia, quote, corporate dentist says they have 9 cavities and family dentist said there were 0 cavities.
Yeah, and I had some similar situations happen in Canada to me where every time I take fairly good care of my teeth, and they would always say I have a cavity drill. But then when I started going to other dentists in the United States, I didn't have that. I would say always go to a dentist that you can trust. And this is a good example of this.
I am at my family dentist, the one that I went to growing up, and they said I have no cavities. I went to get a second opinion. They said I had no cavities. And this other place said I had 9 cavities, and they had the drill ready to drill my mouth open. And they said I was going to have to take off work from like the chopping. Bro.
Okay, and you can kind of leave it there.
And also being able to charge for all that.
Well, yeah, and then having the drill right there saying you have 9 cavities, you have to take, good for her for kind of walking out of there, getting a second opinion, not only a second opinion, but went to her family doctor, somebody that she can trust. And I think when it comes to doctors and dentists, family doctors are going to become very, very important again. In Canada, you don't have that with socialized medicine. It's very hard to find, number one, a family doctor, but number two, even if you find a family doctor, doctors aren't allowed to say certain things in Canada, otherwise they'll lose their license. So it's hard to get an actual honest doctor in Canada. If I ever go back to Canada or, for God's sakes, ever moved back to Canada, I would still come to Mexico for my medical treatment.
And as someone that grew up in Mexico and was used to the kind of, I mean, it's split. It's socialized kind of, but it's not that good in that sense. Some places are. And privatized, if you have the ability or have insurance and you can pay, then you can decide where to go. Not having that in Canada was insane to me. Not having the ability to even have the option to find someone I can pay so they can just tell me what's wrong or give me a prescription or whatever. That was infuriating for me, realizing that the system is that broken over in Canada.
Oh yeah, and I've been so not say it's perfect, but because the American medical system was so messed up and the Canadian was even more messed up than the American system, the Mexican system has really, really impressed me. Number one, in medicine, they can do a lot of state-of-the-art things like stem cells that just aren't approved in the United States or Canada. And when it comes to dental work, it's extremely cheap. And because they see so many patients from the United States and Canada, they do an extremely high level of work just because they have so many patients coming through the door.
But unfortunately, the social side of medicine here in Mexico is really bad. And there are no medicines, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue on here.
Craziness. From Defiant L's quote, Minnesota Lieutenant Governor said, when our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them. No, if they tell you that they're a fairy, you don't throw them off the balcony to see if they're going to fly.
Oh.
Because let's be clear, this is life-affirming and life-saving healthcare. When our children tell us who they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them. That's what it means to be a good parent.
When a child says, I'm not going to bed, you don't listen to them and hear them and then let them stay up all night. And especially when it comes to am I a boy or am I a girl, the fact that this ideological capture goes so high up the ranks of politics, it's absolutely disgusting. And the fact that people vote for this intentionally is beyond me.
And this clip is from a while ago, and if you see her shirt, it has a knife on it, or like a pocket knife saying protect trans kids, which in my opinion, none of them exist. But this lady was also apparently implicated in some of the disturbances that we have been seeing in Minnesota. So that is the kind of people that are taking over the state and that had taken over the state. Let's go back to the Epstein files now, but in the health sector, because one interesting piece of information came out that Bill Gates might have given something to his wife and might have led to the divorce. I mean, I do feel bad for the wife.
This was probably one of the more crazy stories in the files, and the fact that she's getting interviewed about this. I mean, this can't make her feel good, but her divorce from Bill Gates is 100% more than justified.
From Defiant L's quote, Melinda Gates' response after Epstein files reveal Bill Gates contracted STD from Russian models and wanted to slip his wife pills, which is insane without her knowing. So she doesn't know. And this came up in emails that were recently revealed with the Epstein drop. But this is them asking this question.
The emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had.
This is Melinda Gates, by the way. This is Bill Gates' ex-wife.
Yeah.
Had additional affairs, and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection, and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior, but I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, you know, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like, at least for me, I've been able to move on in life.
Oh God. And I wish she was still part of that foundation, because I don't think she knew about this before until a lot of these files came out. She probably divorced him for a lot of other reasons. And I think she knows where some of the bodies are buried. And I hope she blows the whistle on Bill. Maybe she's nice and tight-lipped and she's just going to go to the FBI quietly.
I mean, I think because of her reaction and the pauses, but also the facial expressions that she was making, the few that she could make with all the Botox, not talking about her, how she looks, but it looked very obvious that she knew, at least, like, was fully aware of what the lady was talking about. You could see her, you know, reaching back into her memory. And which is interesting because Bill also came out recently to say that none of this happened, and was also asked similar questions and said, of course, none of this happened. From Mike America, quote, Bill Gates has responded to the allegations in the Epstein files, backpedaling and lying his butt off, completely negating all the evidence in the files. This is the newest statement he has given regarding the emails that recently came out.
Every minute I spent with him, I regret and I apologize that I did that.
Part of that issue of trust brings me to Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know what your relationship with him was.
Yeah, I met Jeffrey in 2011. So over a period of 3 years, I had a number of dinners with him. The focus was always, he knew a lot of very rich people, and he was saying he could get them to give money to global health. You know, in retrospect, that was a dead end. And I've said many times, but I'll say again, I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him.
I just wanted money from him for my health.
Because I'm an absolute trillionaire, or God, how much money does he have? Like
that too.
no doubt seen the allegations, including some of them from the last 24 to 48 hours. Are they true?
No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. Was he trying to attack me in some way? But, it just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
The problem is some of the things that he has sent, some of the information about other people that has come up in those files has been true. Why would he do this and say this about you, do you think?
It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Mistake.
Is it frustrating to you, given what you've said, that this is now happening?
Not really. I mean, people should, hold people who are successful to a very high bar. And so, it's as these documents come out, they're going to be close.
Judging by his response compared to his wife's response, his wife's response seems genuine. She seems horrified by it. She seems like she knew a lot of this. And even though she knew it in divorce bill, maybe she didn't even want it to come out. Bill's response is just something else. You know how deep those connections lie. I mean, the more that comes out, the less he's being vindicated. When he says that, it's kind of like when Mark Carney says, judge me on the grocery prices. A year later, grocery prices are through the roof.
And finally, I guess some good news from Colin Wright. Quote, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons came out against gender-affirming surgeries for anyone under 19 years old. Common sense.
Fantastic.
Making them the first major US-based medical association to officially narrow their guidance. Let's remember, the Association of Pediatrics in the US still hasn't done anything similar. Former ASPS President Scott Bradley Glasberg acknowledged this adolescent population as vulnerable due to the irreversible nature of these surgeries and noted the insufficient evidence demonstrating a favorable risk-benefit ratio for the pathway of gender-related endocrine and surgical interventions in children and adolescents.
Well, and I originally had this post right after the one with the politician talking about you should believe your children when they say something, and I wanted to contrast the two. I accidentally added the Bill and Melinda Gates story in between those two, but just remember that story compared to what the actual facts are now coming out. Donald Trump has given enough cover to a lot of these medical organizations to come out and start telling the truth and reforming their bad policies.
But, and this might be a very controversial opinion on my part, but especially for the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, they should also come out against, for example, boob jobs I can't say that word, making chests bigger for young ladies that want that, but that are underage, or rhinoplasties or any other kind of surgical or injectable that could be done to children and women, especially girls under 18, because I do think that that is also very detrimental. And we have seen it rise in baby Botox, for example, of young girls, sometimes young as 15, injecting Botox and fillers into their faces to prevent wrinkles. And that kind of mentality, they should also come out against that because, like it or not, it is related in a way to dysmorphia of either gender or body or whatever. But they should have also, I think, talked about not doing that for aesthetic reasons with underage girls as well.
Yeah, 100%. And even this looks maxing with guys is kind of getting out of control. So not just
both sides.
Not just focusing on women anymore, but also focusing on men, because men at a young age are something's happening, especially on the conservative right. It's like they're turning the conservative right gay.
It's the gender affirming care that's happening on the right now as well.
Yeah.
And I do think that ideologically both those lines, even though as separate as they may seem, I think it's coming from a very similar place.
Oh, definitely.
And parents, teachers especially, but parents, teachers, and societies have completely not taking appropriate care of the young people that are now coming up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's incredibly sad.
Well, and this is just an insecurity of an absolute generation. And that's why people under 18 are really trying to look for outward validation and things of this nature.
And some of them finding religion, but I will say also, I don't want to blame everything on social media, but a lot of it is happening because of social media comparison and not having anything better to do. Not having, they had to, toil on a farm during the summers or have a summer job, which now they can't have because there's too many immigrants. immigrants, both legal and illegal, having those jobs instead of them. Because they have nothing else better to do, they only focus on themselves.
Okay,
and
let's go into religion now.
Well, we have a lot of comments.
Oh,
So I
okay.
was kind of doing a segue towards comments.
I think you emptied out the room.
Sorry. Luna says, had same situation. My husband bought dental mirror and checked by ourselves and found no cavities. Then they returned to the same clinic and said that there was no cavity anymore. So magic cavities that disappear.
Yeah. And
It's not profit.
well, it's not necessarily even profit. A lot of these dentists are trying to keep their head above water and they can't. So they're just making up fake dental care that needs to be done. And they think they're going to charge the insurance company. So you're not going to say anything. But it's still you that's getting the dental work done. And if they say you have 9 cavities and they're going to drill, that's going to do damage to your teeth.
And your jaw, probably.
Yeah.
Your bone structure. Sirius says, LOL. Non says, hell no, that's not a good parent.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to believe whatever your child tells you. Sirius says, shaking my head, ex Ms. Gates, sorry, not sorry. I mean, and yes, I do agree here, for example, with Luna as well. Melinda is no different from her husband, such a hypocrite. And again, I do think she probably, I mean, you as a wife, you have to know at least a little bit. And
yeah,
I
but
mean,
this is kind of why I brought up the fact that I do think she knows probably where some of the bodies are buried. And if certain things come out in these files and it pisses her off, she's the one that can blow the whistle. And this is the same thing that could happen with a lot of these Epstein files. It's not necessarily that there's evidence in the files, but maybe one of the files pisses off a spouse or pisses off a friend or pisses off a mother or a father, and they blow the whistle on somebody else. And then dominoes begin to fall. Because if that doesn't happen, I don't think there's enough in a lot of these files. I think they held a lot of the files back.
or deleted them. I still have my theory that they've deleted a lot of
No,
things.
you don't delete files when you can use them as leverage.
But
Why
then,
would you do
they
that?
they could be used against you as well.
Okay, let's continue.
Sirius just says this. Rafa says, there are a lot of dentist scammers here too. Yes, and I do agree with that.
Yeah, but
in Mexico.
Robert Barnes is a constitutional attorney in the United States, and he always says we need less regulations. And then they say, well, if you have less regulations, you're going to be at more risk when you go to a dentist or to a restaurant. But the argument back is, yeah, that's why word of mouth is so important. And that's why a good restaurant that is at low cost, you can trust it because it has good word of mouth and a lot of people go there. Same thing with the dentist. That's why word of mouth in a place like Mexico is so important.
Yeah, and it is very important
Because
for
it is
everything.
it is a lot less regulated. So you want to make sure you're safe when you're going there. So yeah.
Thank you, Ethel, for letting us know that now RUMBLE works.
Fantastic.
Ethel says, your dear family doctor will tell you to get a jibby jab first and then come back for dental and other arrangements. I mean that too. And then Ethel also says, you really believe this, Melinda? Crocodile tears? Come on, you guys, don't be so naive. I mean, I do think, again, she knows a lot more than she's letting on, but at the same time, her life did implode. Maybe she thought it was never going to happen. Maybe she thought none of this was ever going to come out. But now she can use that as leverage, and the spouses and the people affected by this could have, a big part to play in what comes next.
I think when I look at Melinda Gates, I think she's a female, but I think she was a lot more ideologically captured when it came to their charity work. And I think Bill Gates was completely in the know. These were power plays, and they're hurting people worldwide with a lot of their actions of their foundations. And I think he knows that, and it's more about world control. I think he was able to string her along with a lot of false ideology, and I think she probably really bought into a lot of that. But that's just my gut feeling.
But I mean, as a spouse, you do kind of at least know a little bit what's happening in your own house.
Yeah, she's definitely not completely innocent, and that's why I say she knows where some of the bodies are buried. And if she gets pissed off enough, hopefully she has one of those whistles that they have in Minnesota, and she blows it on Bill.
Well, let's move on to religion after that interesting thing.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
And yes, only one, but interesting thing in this section.
I can't remember. Oh, yeah.
What?
I couldn't remember what story I grabbed for religion. I was specifically looking for one religious story that I could bring in there, but.
From Radio Genoa, quote, this explains everything there is to know from the collapse of Europe, about the collapse of Europe. Charles in 1993 said, Islam helped create a modern Europe. Islam can teach us a way of understanding and experiencing the world that Christianity itself has lost.
Yeah, and this was way back in 1993, and now we see with the flood of Islam into Europe, it hasn't necessarily worked out the way they thought it would, or maybe they did think it was going to work out that way, and this is all intentional.
And I mean, we saw Charles and Camilla celebrating every single other holiday except Christian holidays or Catholic holidays.
Yeah,
well, not Catholic, but Christian.
They were using Hillary Clinton's idea of empathy all the way back in 93 here.
Islam is part of our past and our present in all fields of human endeavor. It has helped to create modern Europe. It is part of our own inheritance, not a thing apart. Islam can teach us today a way of understanding and living in the world which Christianity itself is the poor ever having lost. Our judgment of Islam has been grossly distorted by taking the extremes to be the norm. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a serious mistake. It is like judging the quality of life in Britain by the existence of murder and rape, child abuse, and drug addiction. The extremes do exist, and they must be dealt with. But when used as a basis to judge a society, they lead to distortion and unfairness. We in the West need also, I think, to understand the Islamic world's view of us. There is nothing to be gained and much harm to be done, it seems to me, by refusing to comprehend the extent to which many people in the Islamic world genuinely fear our own Western materialism and mass culture as a deadly challenge to their Islamic culture and way of life. The fact is that our form of materialism can be...
That's how you get conquered, and that's exactly what happened to the EU and the UK. And the fact wasn't even as much as he was talking about Islam, but that one little part where he said Christianity lost and it's a failure, that was a step too far for me.
And
because it brought Europe so far, more than any other nation or any other region on earth.
And I mean, I wouldn't agree with him either that Islam helped build the West or helped build Europe. It helped destroy Spain, for example. And we're going to get into other things that are destroying Spain right now with remigration. But now I'm trying to find a comment to read because the guy left. Okay, I'll continue. Let's move to remigration and understand how now lots of parts of Europe, but especially Spain, we're going to be talking about, is being destroyed from the inside still. Hold on, where is it?
The immigration policies in Europe are a disaster. You're destroying Europe. You're destroying the culture of Europe.
I'm not used to doing this show in English alone. I am used to doing the Spanish show alone, but not the English one. Let's get into Spain's Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, because he has said one more, aside from all the other ridiculous things he has said, one more worrying thing as well, other than wanting to, legalize 500,000 illegal immigrants into Spain for their voting bloc. But
well, there were a few other clips of Spanish politicians, and reporters are going up to him asking about this. And one politician in particular actually started to assault the reporter. So this is getting under politicians' skin. I'm glad this radical from Spain is now doing a lot of his speeches in English because it allows me to expose them to an English audience.
From Disclosed TV, quote, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez calls out Musk, a migrant himself, for amplifying the story about the sovereign decision to regularize 500,000 migrants that live, work, and contribute to the success of our country. And they've continued down this suicidal empathy.
In a single day, they legalized 500,000 migrants.
Because they know they're probably going to lose.
Yeah, this is really their mask-off moment.
Just last week, the owner of X, a migrant himself, used his personal account to amplify disinformation about the sovereign decision by my government, the regularization of 500,000 migrants that live, work, and contribute to the success of our country. The same platform that has allowed its AI growth to generate...
Yeah, live, work, and contribute and start to erase and erode the culture and suppress the wages for your regular citizens.
And increase the violence, too.
Illegal sexual content. Meanwhile, Instagram has been accused of spying on millions of Android users around the world. Facebook has been used to deploy hundreds of misinformation and foreign interference campaigns during national and regional elections.
The EU and the UK government outright spy on you, and in their laws, they make these tech companies open up backdoors so they can read every single message, and then they want to accuse the tech companies of spying on them. No,
which also happens.
This is ridiculous. Yeah, okay, the tech companies spy on you. Your government is doing it openly. Why don't you reiterate that point?
All these cases are real, and fresh, and represent just the tip of the iceberg, a small sample of the many crimes and misconducts that are taking place every day on social media. Some may say that if we do not like social media platforms, we can simply leave them, that no one is forced to use X or TikTok. And they're right. For many of us, this is still an option. But we know that our children and many citizens do not have that choice. Social media has become...
So for the longest time, when the left absolutely controlled all social media under the Biden administration before X was bought by Elon Musk, the thing was, if you don't like it, you can just go off the platform. And that was the argument, or you can make your own platform. And then even if, as much as I don't like Candace Owens, her husband did try to make another platform. That was Parler, and then it got banned. I mean, every time conservatives try to make a platform, they banned it until Elon Musk bought one. And now what are they saying? Well, we can't stay off your platform. They want to control every single platform. And if there's just one single platform that really allows at least more free speech than others, they can't have that one because it exposes them.
Become an integral part of their lives, of their reality. So if we want to protect them, there's only one thing we can do: take back control. We need to take...
So safety and security for children and those that cannot leave the platforms because they've become an integral part of their lives, not educating them as to the dangers or why they shouldn't be on social media, but rather have the government be the ones that patrols the safety and security of these platforms, because now people are so indoctrinated into them that you cannot get them out.
They can just, if they want to, they can ban children from being on the platform if that's something they want. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's up to the parent to do. That being said, they're using that as an excuse so they can get ideological capture of the platform and say what is and what isn't hate speech, so they can steer the platform in a authoritarian, elite, left-leaning, globalist direction.
To make sure that these platforms comply with the rules like everybody else. I know that it won't be easy. Social media companies are wealthier and more powerful than many nations, including mine. But their might and power should not scare us, because our determination is greater than their pockets.
It's not.
And also the crowd there, I want to know.
Their wealth doesn't scare me or intimidate me. It's what these nations are doing in the EU, in Canada, in Australia, especially from where they came from. You expect a lot of this behavior from countries like China or Russia. You don't expect it from what's going on in all these Western countries now.
But we do see Hakeem Jeffries completely missing the point in the plot, as always, from Resist the Mainstream, quote, Democrat Representative, Hakeem Jeffries claims that Republican policies on immigration enforcement have been a complete and total failure. And I think it is because their side is now fully losing because of the new agreements and new tactics that we're seeing in specifically Minnesota, but elsewhere too.
Well, and let's just think about this for a second before we get into the clip. The border's been completely shut down. So even if Trump's getting rid of immigrants at a much slower rate because a lot of these blue states aren't cooperating with him, there's no new influx of illegal immigrants coming in. So I think that's a big victory, and that's a permanent victory as long as you keep the same policies. So if the Democrats come back in and you see this major influx of illegal immigration again, people are going to be able to point out, well, Trump stopped it, no problem.
And Republican policies on immigration enforcement have been a complete and total failure. Taxpayer dollars should not be spent to brutalize and kill American citizens. Taxpayer dollars should be spent to make life more affordable for everyday Americans, something that Republicans have refused to do from the very beginning of Donald Trump being sworn into office last January.
Getting rid of illegal immigration that is a drain, not only for example, social services that should be going to American citizens, but also depressing wages. So yes, I mean, in a way, that is also what they're doing.
Well, inflation was at one of its highest points right before Donald Trump took office. It is way down. So the fact that he's saying Republicans aren't addressing prices, inflation has been brought down, and now he has to reverse that trend even further. That being said, Tom Holman recently came into Minnesota, and now he's pulling back ICE, exactly what I said they should do. And they're getting major results because they're finally getting cooperation with Minnesota because they're doing all of these investigations. It's putting pressure on the governor and the mayor to actually allow ICE into the prisons to deport these people once they're released.
Which is a lot easier than what other sanctuary cities are doing, where they are kind of having to force ICE to actually do all the enforcement themselves instead of cooperating with enforcement that has already been done.
Well, Trump's numbers are way lower than Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or any president previous to him. He's just not able to deport people at the same rate because he's not getting cooperation from any of the blue states. Mm-hmm. What the previous presidents did is when they did deportations, they simply went to the prisons and deported any illegal alien that was convicted of a crime. These states are not allowing Donald Trump or ICE into these states to apprehend these citizens once they're released from prison. So it's massively distorting the numbers. And it's causing Trump to take much more radical action.
And in Portland, we showed I think last stream, concerning thing that schools are now doing, but also in Chicago, continuing to use children not only as pawns, but also to propagandize them since they're little. So hopefully they'll continue down the path. I think they'll rebel and become conservative, but the more they do try to do this, the more the kids will hate it because it's the adults feeding it to them, and they'll say, oh, I'll rebel, I'll go follow Christ and be conservative. From Lips of Chicago, quote, only 6% of students at Roosevelt High School can read at or above grade level, so it was extremely important that students were let out of school to chant ridiculous slogans fed to them.
Yeah, and we had already shown 5- and 6-year-olds on the last episode that made signs in class and then were brought out to the schoolyard to protest ICE, which is absolutely ridiculous. But it was actually the caption up at the top here, if you go back up. Only 6% of the students at this school are at high school are at reading level, yet they're taking them out of school to protest. This is ridiculous.
They want you dumb and useful to them.
The students at Roosevelt High School have decided to come out today to say that ICE has no place in our communities, and we are here to support them. Roosevelt High School has an incredible tradition.
And it looks like
I'd love to ask the kids if they even know what ICE is, what fascism means, what the KKK was. I'm sure they have no idea what they're even saying. And they're in high school.
The teacher wants to virtue signal to all the left, all the higher ups, get a promotion, secure her job, make sure she can't get fired. Look what I did with my kids.
And she sounds like a strong Latina.
Yeah.
The students here at Roosevelt High School can't read, but I make them go chant things that they don't understand because I haven't taught them. And I did want to show this clip, maybe not all of it, but it has been doing the rounds on X and other places. And I do think it's important for people that are still, if you have someone that doesn't believe or believes a lot of the propaganda being fed, to just give them some of these facts. And also start investigating the facts yourself for the things that they say. Because every time I get into a conversation with someone that's saying like, oh, they're deporting American citizens, or oh, they deported a poor little what's it called? Gardener. And without any reason, then if you ask them to look into the stories, or you ask people to tell you where to find this story so you can maybe either prove that it's right or debunk it, then they have no idea where it is or what to say.
Yeah, and I knew a lot of this from the first Trump administration. This had all come out, and I had started waking up around that time. So I was looking very hard into these stories, and every photo and every story that was in the news wound up being fake. And that's kind of what red-pilled me and woke me up originally. It was all these fake photos and all these fake stories that were coming out during the Jibby Jab era.
Now listen, I'm about to waterboard you with this. If you do not believe you're in the middle of a propaganda war, I love you, and you can be as mad at me as you want. You're wrong. Okay, so listen, I'm going to rapid fire these. Here we go. Right here, number one. No, this is not a picture of an 8-year-old girl who died in ICE custody under the Trump administration's heartless dictatorship. It happened in 2023 as reported by the New York Times under the Biden administration. But now it's getting millions of views and being labeled as happening now. Number two, no, this is not a photo of a 5-year-old put in a cage because of the current administration calls people illegal. Nope, Snopes reports after millions of views, it was discovered that was a photo taken at a protest staged in front of Dallas City Hall. The parents brought the kid to the protest. He was in the cage for about 30 seconds and he cried because he couldn't figure out how to get out. Number 3, no, this is not a video of ICE agents, quote unquote, drive-by macing people for no reason. That went mega viral. I watched the entire video myself. They were throwing things at law enforcement vehicles, and the guy maced the guy that was throwing things at law enforcement vehicles. Number 4, no, this is not a picture of a woman whose hand was shot off by ICE agents firing rounds at mourners, as was claimed, and it got millions of views. Nope, she was rioting and obstructing law enforcement, and as you can see right here, she picked up a flashbang before it detonated and injured her own hand, blew part of it off. Next one, no, this is not a picture of a 5-year-old boy arrested by ICE. As reported, the boy's father abandoned him while he was fleeing arrest. That is a picture of ICE agents following protocol and not leaving a 5-year-old alone in freezing weather out on the street. Next one, no, this is not a picture of a baby that was tear gassed by ICE while his parents were on their way to a basketball game. Go to that next picture. You can literally see in video that was uncovered later. His parents lied. They're on video at a violent protest, and they left their baby alone in a car for 45 minutes at a riot that they helped cause, and they forced tear gas to be deployed. Next one. This is not a picture of an innocent restaurant worker being arrested by heartless ICE agents. As you can see right here, it is a picture of an illegal child rapist who fled into a restaurant to avoid arrest and seems to have a knife in his hand, if you look closely. Next one. This is not a picture of ICE ripping a disabled woman from her car while she was screaming that she was trying to get to the doctor, as was claimed and seen by millions of people. I watched the entire video. She was intentionally obstructing ICE officers by blocking a road. She was asked by 4 different ICE officers to move. She did not comply, and so they were forced to remove her from her vehicle.
Okay, you can pause it really quick. We can kind of leave it there, but
I just want to, if you do want to watch it, because he does go into a lot of the things that are going around right now, it's at Howerton Josh on X.
Well, yeah, and the original, I think, origin of a lot of these stories was the kids in cages. Trump is putting kids in cages. Those cages were originally built by the Obama administration, and Trump began using them because they wanted to begin DNA testing children with their parents at the border so they would separate them and make sure kids weren't coming across the border and being sex trafficked into the United States, because this was a huge problem. And what the Biden administration did was they were just handing off kids to strangers that were claiming to be their relatives or parents.
And I will say again, DHS has released that website where you can go and check what each person has been arrested for and what crimes they had committed, the ones that are being just immediately deported. But I will say it is very important, especially with people that are believing the narrative, because it becomes increasingly frustrating to talk to these people, because they will come up with things that they read, be it in the New York Times or on X or on Facebook or wherever, but cannot substantiate their claims, to debunk them or pre-bunk them, as Simple would say, and just show them the information before they even get, or they, like if they haven't gotten to the information, show them the actual facts before they get to the propagandized version that the mainstream media and other activists try to do.
Yeah, because we do a news show 3 times a week now, I'm noticing, like, before it was the original story would come out, and then a few days later, the actual facts would come out that would kind of debunk that. But now it almost seems like there's the story, then the real story, then new facts, and then another wave of facts. It's this huge propaganda war that's going on. You notice this especially in Iran or in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Minnesota, they continue to be stupid, but now they're looking even worse because ICE has mostly left, and they are cooperating. I mean, law enforcement is cooperating with ICE now. So,
and we're gonna have 2 clips back to back here. One where the gentleman's on the street, and we have another clip of the gentleman actually in the car getting ID'd or getting held up by the protesters.
Which isn't that illegal for regular citizens to be detaining other citizens?
They don't like ICE checking your papers, but it's okay for the protesters to check your papers.
Well, because they have to do the same.
Well, because they're Antifa.
Yes. Wall Street Ape says, quote, ICE protesters confirm Minneapolis law enforcement is allowing them to stop vehicles and run their plates at their blockades. The Daily Caller is able to confirm blockades in Minneapolis are being used as license plates checks. Yes,
Here in South Minneapolis, we just actually spoke to some of the individuals you're going to just check out here wearing the kind of black block covering their faces. They have this kind of blockade here where they're stopping some vehicles. Actually, Eric, if you could point down there, they're actually stopping this vehicle, and they check the out-of-state places to see if they're ICE. And what's interesting is just moments ago, down there, we have an Uber driver. He's from Somalia. He's clearly not ICE. And they said that in their database that vehicle was popping up as an ICE vehicle. So we were questioning them about this database that they're using. Obviously, there's some type of network or communication. According to them, local law enforcement hasn't even came in and stopped. So Eric, just kind of shoot some of this, check it out. They're on the phone. I guess they were checking the license plate. We heard in their walkie-talkie that the license plate that they ran is not ICE, but you see they're on their walkie-talkie. They're talking. We want to find out a little bit more about the database, but they don't want to answer our question. So It's the situation right now here in town. Minneapolis is called like a blockade. Hey, how you doing? Just talk to me a little bit about this database, because we just ran our Somali Uber driver's license plate. I mean, you guys did run his license plate without his permission. Just talking about the database a little bit.
Okay, and you can kind of leave it there. And the weird thing is they're completely masked up. They're talking about they don't want ICE masked up. At least ICE has a badge and are identifying themselves as police, and they actually have a job to do that. These are random Antifa people in black mask doing ID checks and paper stops. Now, in this particular clip, it wasn't very clear if they were actually stopping the cars. So I got an actual clip of somebody in the car getting stopped, but there are a lot of different clips online right now of people actually getting stopped. Like, why the hell am I getting stopped? Who are you to stop me?
But I will say, I mean, these idiots cosplaying as quasi-communist law enforcement could create, I mean, it could quickly devolve into a very dangerous situation if someone decides to, you know, pull a DUN or do something to them, or vice versa. It could escalate very quickly. And if the police aren't doing anything and this is allowed to continue to happen, I fear they might get even more dangerous for just regular citizens of Minnesota.
And we can go right just to the clip.
Well, that I don't know. Can I drive? I got a red light.
So now we need permission to drive from these people?
Can you back up slightly and go right?
Yeah, I could. If you leave, I'll go right. Thank you. Well, that I don't know.
Yeah, the fact is that this is the beginning of how you get a Chaz Chop Zone, which happened in Seattle.
Well, they're already calling it a Maz.
Yeah, well, what happened in Seattle, first they just blocked off the major streets, so they had 8 streets where nobody can kind of come in. Next thing you know, every guard they had at each position had a gun. At this point, they're not quite at the gun stage yet, but if things continue to amplify...
Well, we don't know, because...
Yeah.
I mean, Priddy had one.
Well, ICE is getting pulled out and has a much reduced role in the state of Minnesota now, not just Minnesota, but all over the nation. Trump's changing his tactics. It's a much better tactic, and I think it's going to do better optically.
Yeah. Rafa says, Spanish activist Isabel Peralta was sentenced to a year in prison for saying that they are being invaded. So they have started with the censoring and the hate speech. And
what was that?
In Spain, an activist that was saying that they were being invaded by illegal immigrants got a year in jail for saying that.
Yeah, and this was the thing.
And they'll continue.
Well, and that's a very sensitive subject in Spain right now. Literally, the politicians are assaulting journalists for asking questions about these 500,000 migrants. And now, rather than having the politicians assault journalists, they're just going to make it hate speech. You're breaking the law if you bring up the migrants.
And jail.
Yeah.
Sirius says Proverbs 22:6. I don't know the Bible.
I don't know.
Sorry. Sirius also says, hey, and what a coincidence. Lots of police auditors have leftist views.
Yeah.
And I'll read.
It was just like when they were censoring hate speech online, or the fact-checking organizations online. Everybody that was hired into these fact-checking organizations in Twitter, when it was Twitter, on Facebook, and on the other social media platforms, were all left-leaning NGOs.
And on Are You and Billy, Ethel says, Guy, ComicTube can now very efficiently translate videos into English. Take advantage. For the Pedro Sanchez video. But I think it's only if the person uploaded enables it to be translated. And it's not always good. Ethel says, you expect this behavior from Russia, Guy. Wait, Guy, I thought you loved Russia and praised Putin. How are you expecting bad behavior from Russia at the same time?
Well, I don't always praise Putin. I virtually never praise Xi, although once in a while I will. But I think Russia gets a very bad rap a lot of the times. So I do point out when there is good things in Russia. And I think the EU has taken advantage of that relationship, and especially the way they frame things, because they have control over most of the Western media. So I think a lot of the truth of the facts don't come out that are on Russia's behalf. Not to say that they're a great country, but they are headed in the right direction. That country was completely collapsed at one point. They've actually grown more than any other country up until 2017. They were growing even faster than China. That was being repressed by the mainstream media as well. That country was absolutely worthless. It was less than the world's gas station. And now where they're at, they're actually self-sufficient. They've built an economy, which is a siege economy, with that they don't really rely on anybody else. I'd like to see a good national economy. So not to say,
as an example,
not to say Russia has the best economy, but the way it's structured as they grow, they're completely self-reliant.
Let's move on to the U.S., which is also now growing at an unprecedented rate for the first time.
And there are quite a few stories in the U.S. today.
So let's start. From Marinalfa, quote, breaking, the U.S. Navy just shot down an Iranian drone that was approaching the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier. The drone was a Shahed 129 and was shot down by a U.S. F-35 fighter jet, source from Reuters.
Yeah, a lot of the assets that were off of Venezuela are now kind of surrounding Iran or in that region as they apply pressure to Iran. This is just one of the few escalations that have happened over the last few days. Negotiations kind of broke down, and now they're trying to re-engage the negotiations in a new location. We'll see if the United States actually agrees to that. I don't want to see the United States invade Iran. They've been trying to make a color revolution for almost a month now. And yeah, stay out of these foreign wars. Like Venezuela was one thing. You were in and out. You left the regime in place, so it didn't turn to a forever war. The first time you bombed Iran, you were kind of in and out. You can only do these things so many times. People are expecting Trump to do these in and out things. I think Iran's going to do much more hard line negotiation, knowing Trump isn't going to want to come in boots on the ground for a long period of time.
Speaking of Trump, there is good news for him. There we are. From Nick Sortor, quote, wannabe Trump unaliver Ryan Ruth has officially been sentenced to life in prison. Enjoy rotting in solitary, scumbag. And he was weird and had some weird connections too.
And I believe he tried to stab himself in the throat with a pin at trial one day. I'll be surprised if he doesn't.
Well, didn't he want to self-represent as well?
Yeah, he was trying to self-represent as well. There was a lot of strings connecting him to Ukraine, to Afghanistan, to the CIA. This was somebody I really wish they had looked a lot more into. They didn't. And that alone raises a lot of questions for me.
Sentenced to life in prison. This, of course, was over the Trump assassination attempt. We'll have a live report in just moments. And as you'll remember, the jury deliberated for about 2 hours, but they came to the decision, according to our reports, within 10 minutes after viewing the exhibits. So, sentenced to life.
Yeah, that was.
What's up with Kayleigh McEnany's hair?
Yeah, it was Kayleigh. I can't even say her name.
The bigger the hair, the closer to God.
She used to be the White House press secretary, and I thought she was absolutely the best. She used to come out there with that binder, and if they asked a question, she just had the response, and she had the statistics, and she just laid it on them. The new press secretary is good as well, but
Caroline Levitt.
Yeah, she's just not quite as sharp as the last one.
Kayleigh McEnany.
Yeah, I can't say her name.
Moving on. From Nice Karen, quote, we bought our house in 2001 for say that number?
For $110,000. Our town now taxes us on a,
I can't read numbers.
$300,000 house.
God, between you and I, we don't make one.
I can read numbers. She can read words. So together we make one person.
Exactly. Good Lord, this is the most stupid, idiotic, financially illiterate president in the history of our
Okay,
republic.
we have two articles back to back that are contradicting each other, and these are two policies of the current Trump administration. He's trying to play both sides in order to maximize votes into the midterms. I'll explain which one I think is actually the real policy. I think this is the fake policy, I believe.
The thing Scott said, though, is, again, existing housing, people that own their homes, we're going to keep them wealthy. We're going to keep those prices up. We're not going to destroy the value of their homes so that somebody that didn't work very hard can buy a home. We're going to make it easier to buy. We're going to get interest rates down. But I want to protect the people that for the first time in their lives feel good about themselves. They feel like that they're wealthy people. And I want them to understand it. There's so much talk about, we're going to drive housing prices down. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up for people that own their homes. And
Okay, you can leave it there. And what he says there is he wants to keep housing prices up. But what his policies actually show is he's going to bring them down. He knows housing prices aren't going to come down before the midterms, and he doesn't want to scare off boomer voters that all their retirements in the price of their house, and they feel like they won the lottery because their house inflated 10 times. The truth of the matter is, for the long-term stability of the nation, house prices need to come down. They need to come way down. Trump's policies are actually doing that, but he can't say that before the midterms because he'll lose the boomer voters who are the actual voters who come out to the polling booths. A lot of the younger voters don't. And when he was originally talking about lowering house prices and all the policies he was doing, boomers were getting scared and they were saying they're not going to vote for him. So he's trying to give the public perception that he's going to keep housing prices down. But we show week after week why I think housing prices are actually going to come down. And if you compare the United States housing prices to Canada or the EU, they are way down. They're extremely cheap, especially when you compare wages in the US to wages in Canada and the EU as well. But we'll show some of his actual policies. And this is just like one of 10 housing policies. Overall, I think he's going to drop housing prices dramatically. And I think his compromises for this, or he's hoping his compromise for this, is he's going to get rid of property taxes, meaning if you own your home outright and you're retired, you're not going to have to worry about paying a property taxes, which kind of becomes like a rent in old age, especially if you're not working.
But because also, I mean, long-term strategy-wise, the boomers won't be here for that much longer, unfortunately, and it's not something I'm happy about, but I mean, that population will start leaving us, and then what is going to happen long term to the younger populations that continue to be destroyed, apparently.
Yeah, but if you have a house that is worth, say you bought it for $100,000, now it's worth $1 million, the property taxes on that is absolutely immense, especially if you go into retirement and now you're paying on $1 million home. So if he gets rid of property taxes, I think that's a good compromise for people that already own their home. It's not only a great compromise for them, but it will incentivize people to buy homes knowing they don't have to permanently pay taxes on a house.
I just have to read, there's no video. For Mary Nawfal, quote, Trump homes could flood the market with cheap housing. Home builders are talking about a plan to build nearly 1 million so-called Trump homes to help ease the housing affordability crunch. The pitch is simple: build a lot cheaper homes fast and push more supply into a tight market. And seeing as housing is expensive because there aren't enough homes, this could be a big swing at that problem. But we've also seen this not work so well in Vancouver and, for example, in Austin, Texas, too.
Yeah, they definitely need to build more homes. There's like a 10-point strategy that he's implementing that I actually think will drop home prices overall. God, I was going to say one more thing. I can't remember. Okay.
Next one?
Yeah, you can go into the next one. If I remember, I'll bring it back up.
Okay. From Rightscope, quote, President Trump just told every Republican senator to their faces they must end the filibuster or nothing will be passed for 3 years. Is that the one that a lot of people got shocked?
You can continue to read this because this is important.
Start tonight, pass voter ID, no mail-in voting, all the things make our elections secure and safe. John, have they done...
Okay, you can leave it there. It was mainly about the voter ID. I think it's called the START Act. He wants to completely reform voting so it's 100% transparent and you're going to need a voter ID. There will be no more sanctuary states. This is one thing I do agree on. I don't think they're going to be able to get rid of the filibuster. If they did, they would be able to finally reform voting laws and Democrats would not win another election. Whether that's a good thing, I don't know, because it would massively consolidate power.
It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it. And if you don't terminate the filibuster, you'll be in bad shape. We won't pass any legislation. There'll be no legislation passed for 3 1/4. We have 3 1/4 years, so that's a long time. But when they can't do an extension, and John, I think they've done an extension every single time they've ever been asked for ever. This is the first time they haven't done an extension. Extensions are supposed to be easy, but if they won't do an extension, they won't do any bill, even a simple bill.
And when he's saying an extension, they're threatening to shut down the government again over these ICE protests. They've already shut down the government once. They keep shutting down the government. He wants to get rid of the filibuster so he can, number one, keep the government open, but he knows the midterms are coming up. And I was looking back at the statistics. No president ever since even Reagan lost seats in the House and the Senate during the midterms. So Trump knows he's going to lose in the midterms, which that could cause an impeachment. If he gets rid of the filibuster now, that's going to allow him to do a lot.
We should do our own bills. We should get out. We should do our own bills. We should open up. We should start tonight with the country's open. Congratulations. Then we should pass voter ID. We should pass no mail-in voting. We should pass all the things that we want to pass, make our elections secure and safe, because California is a disaster. Many of the states are disasters. But can you imagine when they vote almost unanimously against voter ID? All we want is voter ID. You go to a grocery store, you have to give ID. You go to a
Okay,
gas
you can
station,
stop it there. If he was able to reform voter ID before the midterms, there's a good chance he would be the first president to actually win in the midterms. I don't think there's any chance he's going to get rid of the filibuster. That being said, if the Democrats get in there, that's going to be one of the first things they do, I think.
And talking again about what kind of started all of this, the daycare fraud in a bunch of different places, in Minnesota first, but now in Ohio. From Wall Street Apes, quote, daycare fraud in Ohio is rampant. 5,000 daycares in Ohio, 67 fraudsters who were charged in 2025 alone, $8.5 million stolen, 3 stole over $1 million each. One facility claimed 100 home-delivered meals per day for just 4 patients. The total bill, $1.2 million. Taxpayers billed for 4,500 pieces of equipment that was never ordered. Daycares being overpaid discovered.
Yeah, and you don't need to play the clip here. I just kind of wanted to bring up the statistics and refocus on, I think it needs to be less about ICE in these states. In order to get illegal immigrants out, he needs to negotiate with the states to take people in prisons and deport them once they commit a crime. He needs to focus on the rampant fraud that's going on, not just in Minnesota, but California and everywhere else. That helps you win the media propaganda war going into the midterms. Unveiling this fraud, unmasking the Democrats for what they are in these sanctuary states. If you can show enough fraud in these sanctuary states, maybe you can justify getting rid of the filibuster to reform voter ID. Because voter ID is the ultimate fraud, but it's going to be very hard to get rid of that policy.
And however, the narrative around voter ID keeps crumbling. And I do love this shock statistics guy, is what I call him from CNN. He's always shocked about the statistics that he himself brings up. From Eric Doherty, quote, in a stunning blow to Democrats, 76% of Black Americans want nationwide voter ID. In other words, Save America Act.
And we can play the clip here. He does a
and
pretty...
82% of Latino voters want it too, because that's what happens in our own countries.
And he does a pretty good job here.
Take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of Black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country. A photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race. The vast majority of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj that, in fact, you should have a photo ID to be able to vote. So something, take a look here. Favorite photo
Okay,
ID.
and the thing is,
I really like
if he's able to get rid of, if he can link voter ID with the filibuster, he might be able to get rid of the filibuster because it has overwhelming support, and everybody knows they're rigging these elections through not having a voter ID.
But also through narratives, and we continue to see it, for example, in Los Angeles with Mayor Karen Bass, Communist Karen Bass, being upset that there's no more people of color on the streets doing her bidding. From Wall Street Apes, quote, Democrats are desperately trying to get Black people back on the streets and rioting. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says Black journalists are being targeted and arrested by the Trump administration.
Yeah, and really listen to what she says here, because this is really telling of her hand and what she actually wants with these riots. And a lot of politicians, this is what they actually want. They want an escalation, and they want the right race to be the victim. Because right now they have 2 white people and they don't like that. That's kind of what I hear her saying here.
I have a particular message to Black America that it's interesting that I believe the journalists that were arrested all look like me and you. And so this is not the first time this has happened. As a matter of fact, the journalist that is with me, Jasmine, was arrested a few years ago.
Mayor, you seemed angry in court. You weren't happy with this.
They're really trying. They're grasping at straws, trying to find how to make this into the same race issue they've been trying to peddle for the past 20 years more.
It's funny that it's like female liberal white America is what's supporting the Democratic Party. And that's who's actually coming out to the rallies, coming out to the protests. That's who's their independent journalists are. And they don't like it because it doesn't allow them to build a proper narrative.
And they continue to be insane. From Wide Angle News Network, quote, a Long Beach, California man, Eric, I don't want to dox him, but is now telling fellow Democrats to become familiar with their MAGA neighbors so they can take care of them when it's time. And this is the insanity that they continue to peddle as well.
Well, I used to live in Long Beach, California, and it's right next to Orange County. Orange County is fairly conservative. I'd say Long Beach, California is working class, and it's I would say it's half and half, even if it goes Democrat. A lot of the cities around there are both. There's a mix of people, but this guy is absolutely insane. And this clip was making the rounds. The fact that a lot of leftists, radical leftists, are so comfortable to say this stuff online, this is an arrestable offense.
I mean, we saw during the Charlie Kirk assassination how they actually think and behave.
I mean, you should know where every MAGA is in your neighborhood. I know every neighbor in my condo HOA complex. I know everyone, and I watch them closely. And when shit pops off, I'm not going to go out looking for someone. I have people right here around me to take care of. And so do you.
This is crazy.
And I will say, like, the whole Temple thing, Civil War, but like, this is where those claims come from.
It's time for the left to start policing their own.
Yep.
I mean, like Nan says earlier, I'm a traditional liberal, but that they've been so pushed out by the radical left right now, and all their policies on the left are these radical, crazy policies. The moderate left, I think, has come over to the Conservative Party, and they may be pushed out by the neocons, so they may be looking for a home. And if they go back to the Democratic side, they're going to need to clean up that party and make it the populist party that it once was.
And then do you want to intro this clip? Because I don't know what to say. From The Blaze, quote, Democrat Representative Ted Lieu launches into a deranged tirade talking about Trump being in the Epstein files thousands of times.
These were just absolute direct lies. I mean, this is getting played all over social media as just an outright lie. And how far the Democratic Party will go, yeah, his name was in there. There was no hard evidence on this. But the way he frames it, he's trying to call Trump a PDF file.
So why are Republicans so interested in Bill and Hillary Clinton? It's because they're trying to distract from the fact that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files thousands and thousands of times. In those files, there's highly disturbing allegations of Donald Trump raping children, of Donald Trump threatening to kill children. So I encourage the press to go look at these allegations. And I'm highly disturbed that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche just got the law wrong. Yesterday, he said, essentially, that it is not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, that's actually not correct. If Jeffrey Epstein was human trafficking minors for these sex parties, and you show up and patronize the establishment at that party, yes, you're guilty, because patronizing is part of the law of the federal sex trafficking.
Okay, you can leave it there. And I'm all for convicting these people, but the second half of his statement might come back to bite the Clintons themselves. But the fact that he's not even like alluding to Trump did this, he's coming out right and saying Trump wants to end children and he's raping children. These are obviously false claims based upon what are in the files. Possibly, I could have gone along with, there's 17-year-old women or women that were slightly in their age that possibly did something. But the way he's putting it, he's going directly after children.
Well, the thing is, yes, the Donald Trump's name has been and had shown up in things that had happened mildly disturbing, if you want to call them, in 2003, 2016, I think it was, or 15, where it was more credible information. But then a lot of the allegations that they're using in the press, and that this guy, Liu, is using as well right now, are from 2025 calls that the FBI got that they did have to log and that they did have to record and that were released alongside with all the other documents that they released. But these are unverified claims right when there's a political campaign and right after they try to arrest Trump, right after they try to do everything to him, of crazy people calling in and saying, oh, yes, I know this about him and this is a tip and etc. Of course, the FBI has to log and record all of those calls, but now people are taking it as if it was 100% fact, which it's not yet verified, and no, it's not. Right now, at least. But comments. Nan says, man, I have been everywhere in the entire state of California. Long Beach was my favorite, and I thought I could move there.
Yeah, I used to really like Long Beach when I was a kid. It was very, very, very diverse. And at that time, that was a good thing because things weren't all woke and there wasn't all this racial tension. I mean, I remember on my block, it was like me, I was white. I had two friends that were Filipino, a Mexican that lived across the street, a black guy that lived across the street. All the families got along great. It was a great place to grow up, but over time, like that city has really gone downhill. Now, Long Beach downtown core, where the tourists go, are absolutely amazing. They absolutely revamped that, but a lot of the city isn't what it used to be.
Never been, so I wouldn't know. And now I'll read the comments on RUMBLE, which now works, so that's good. Ethel says, so Russia bad or Russia good? I'm confused. Ethel's still at it.
Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but the way that it's framed by the EU, it's the devil incarnate, and I'm just not buying that line, especially when you're trying to create World War III.
Speaking of the EU, let's go there now. And again, starting with Pedro Sanchez, because he has continued to say ridiculous things from this same speech. From Disclose TV, quote, Spain's prime minister announces new legal measures against the dangers of social media, which we saw there at the end of that last clip, including banning it for under 16s, making tech CEOs face criminal liability for not removing this hateful content.
Yeah, so this was from the same speech, but now he's going from illegal immigration shouldn't be illegal and we should be empathetic to we need to go after these social media companies hard, and he's going to be the leader of that.
This year, I went to Davos to warn governments about the dangers of social media. Now I am here in Dubai to tell you and explain that Spain is walking the talk. We're fighting back, and we will continue to do so. Starting next week, my government will implement the following actions. First, we will change the law in Spain to hold platform executives legally accountable for many infringements taking place on their sites. This means that CEOs of these techno platforms will face criminal liability for failing to remove illegal or hateful content. And
who decides what is illegal and what is hateful? They do. That's why there's this control.
For that, we governments need to stop turning a blind eye to the toxic content shared under their watch. Second,
pause it.
We will turn.
Yeah, and right now these tech CEOs and these tech companies are safe because Trump's in office and nothing's going to happen to them. But if Gavin Newsom gets in there in 2028, they're not going to have that cover, and they're going to have to bend the knee to this guy and the rest of the people in the EU and all their EU laws. So you're going to have the First Amendment in the United States, but online in the United States, it's going to be EU laws that are going to be governed by you. And I have no doubt that the Democratic Party is funneling a lot of these ideas behind the scenes. We know this because Hillary Clinton gave a speech recommending that's exactly what they do, and now that's exactly what they're doing.
Algorithmic manipulation and amplification of illegal content into a new criminal offense. Disinformation doesn't appear by itself. It is created, promoted, and spread by certain actors. We will go after them as well as after the platforms whose algorithms amplify the disinformation for profit. No more hiding behind code. No more pretending that technology is neutral. Third, we will implement a hate and polarization footprint, a system to track, quantify, and expose how digital platforms fuel division and amplified hate. For too long, hate has been treated as invisible and untraceable. But we will change that, developing a tool that will provide the basis for undertaking future penalties. Because spreading hate must come at a cost. A legal cost, of course, a financial cost, and a moral cost that platforms can no longer afford to ignore. Fourth, Spain will ban access to social media for minors under the age of 16. Platforms will be required to implement effective age verification systems, not just.
And remember, they plant a flag that everybody will kind of accept. 16-year-olds are banned, and then they branch it out from there.
But we've also seen the UK and Australia attempt to implement that, and how not that good that worked, luckily.
Well, in Australia, they did 16-year-olds, and then I think it was within 30 days, they expanded that to 18-year-olds. Next thing, it's going to be 21, and then everybody.
Yeah.
Check boxes, but real barriers that work. Today, our children are exposed to a space they were never meant to navigate alone. A space of addiction, abuse, pornography, manipulation, violence. We will no longer accept that. We will protect them from the digital Wild West.
Okay, that's good. And they're not alone. They have their parents, and their parents should be doing parenting. They don't need this PDF file up on stage saying, we're going to be your new parent. I'm your daddy. I'm going to make sure you're safe. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants these EU politicians being their parents, but that's exactly who the EU thinks they are now. They think they're the world's daddy.
But it's also because they're losing control of the narrative that they're so desperately trying to hold on to that they now have to, as he said, the internet is not neutral. He doesn't want the internet to be neutral because it's not convenient for them. So they have to be able to continue to propagandize and expand their narrative, making it completely biased as they have been doing with mainstream media and movies and etc. Everything else, every other kind of media.
Well, you have to realize like shows like this and all kind of independent political shows, whether it's Tim Pool, this show, or any other number of shows, are extremely important in this time in history because we're having a major influence on EU elections. Populist candidates are coming up. These global elites are losing. But in 2028, if a Democrat wins and goes along with this speech censorship of U.S. platforms, we're no longer going to have a say on how those elections are conducted and who are the winners and losers of those things. We will have no influence on those things. This point in history is probably, if things go wrong in 2028, is the last time we'll have real influence on elections.
As the people, as the citizenry, as the ones that should have, and a democracy decide.
Well, the people are taking back control of a lot of the systems, and the elites are just, they realize speech is the thing taking away a lot of their power.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of elections, from Marinoffel breaking, and this was pretty big, U.S. House Judiciary Committee confirms that the EU interfered in 8 European elections, in Slovakia in 2023, in the Netherlands in 2023 and 2025, in France 24, Romania 2024, Moldova 2024, Ireland in 24 and 25.
Well, we'll just go back up to the top here for a second and then we'll go down. But for a long time on this show, every week I was like, they're rigging elections, they're rigging elections. I would give examples and then got to a point where I couldn't remember every country and exactly how they were rigging it. From here, now I can remember them all. Romania was one of the most egregious of all of them. They literally said Russia was interfering with the election through TikTok. So the result of the election had to be null and void. They had to redo the election. And then it came out later that that story was completely made up so they can null and void that election.
I mean,
and the fact that now it's coming out from U.S. intelligence services that all this stuff was actually happening, it's very important information.
I mean, in France, they stopped the main candidate from being able to even run, which is insane. And then in many others.
A lot of it didn't work because even though they tried to rig the elections, alternative candidates came up that the first candidate, well, that was null and void, ended up endorsing.
And here they mostly just talk about the DSA, which is that law to censor speech, essentially. But there's been other tactics that they've used as well. It says since the DSA came into force in 23, which Hillary Clinton was praising and saying that they should use to do things like this, the European Commission has pressured platforms to censor content ahead of national elections in Slovakia, the Netherlands, France, Moldova, Romania, and Ireland, in addition to the EU elections in 2024. Non-public documents produced by the committee pursuant to subpoena demonstrate how the European Commission regularly pressured platforms ahead of EU member state national elections in order to disadvantage conservative or populist political parties.
Yeah, this is not just about war on American social media companies. If they can implement these protected classes and hate speech laws, they're able to rig elections by saying what's acceptable and unacceptable to talk about during elections, not only on social media, but by candidates themselves. Okay, let's go into, if we have any comments, and then we'll go into Canada.
Luna says, Spain is done, Chicas del Cable vanished. I don't know what Chicas del Cable is. It sounds familiar, but I don't know what it is. And Luna says, saying metaphorically. Saying that it's done metaphorically. I mean, technically, I would say as well. But and Ethel says, the irony. Ethel says, you guys are running the show on a platform that does not even let you say certain words, and every other comment gets removed. After Trump's term, the walls will be closing in more. The future is dark. But unfortunately, YouTube is what he means. YouTube is right now the best solution, I guess, and where you get the most.
As much as you want to talk shit on YouTube, I would talk more shit under the Biden administration because it's a lot better than it was. And I agree with you, the walls are going to be closing in. If almost any candidate wins, the only candidate that is even a little hopeful to have similar free speech policies at this point is J.D. Vance. I think Marco Rubio is a neocon, and he's just going to be quiet about speech and allow the EU to run their Digital Services Act on the United States and shut down speech. Gavin Newsom, again, I think he's a candidate that's absolutely going to be anti-free speech. So I think J.D. Vance is the best choice at this point when it comes to speech. And if any other candidate wins other than him, I think free speech may become a thing of the past, at least as we know it today. Trump has been fantastic when it comes to free speech, other than when it comes to Israel. But
and the Epstein
that's such a small sliver when it comes to the Israel context compared to everything the EU is going after and Joe Biden. Like I'll call Trump out on that, but at least it's just that one little issue compared to like 90% of the things I used to not be able to talk about.
Yeah, true. Like the walls are closing in the next country we're going to, which is Canada. And if you want to talk about a place that really doesn't have free speech, that would be
Canada. It's not that they don't have free speech, but they have the most legislation they're trying to push through right now to become even more draconian than the EU. But as of right now, they've been able to hold it back. So we'll see what happens.
And we have been talking a lot about the different separatist movements around Canada, which we support because I don't see any other solution. Mark Nixon says, Naheed Nenshi says, Daniel Smith, who is the premier of Alberta, caused the separatist movement, which is insane. No, Ottawa caused this. A decade of pipeline blocks caused this. Equalization theft and federal contempt for Alberta voters. They're gaslighting their own people, as they've been doing for a very long time.
This is Danielle Smith's fault. Danielle Smith caused all of this.
Pause it.
By
Daniel Smith is the premier of Alberta. So the separatist movement in Alberta may separate from Canada. She's currently running the country. The province. She's doing a fantastic job, but she is a nationalist and she wants a unified Canada. But she has made way and passed legislation to even allow her citizens to vote on separation. So I give her credit as a nationalist. I'm more of a separatist. That being said, in case the separatist vote fails and Alberta doesn't separate, I think they will separate at this point. But if they do fail, at least they still have a strong leader like Danielle Smith in there.
Pandering to the separatists, by coddling them, by cozying up to Trump, by cozying up to those who want Alberta to be the 51st state, all for her own political gain. She has caused this. What does she gain? And it is time for Danielle Smith to take a stand. No more word salad. A sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, her favorite phrase. What does that even mean? An Albertan recently told me, that sounds like me saying, I want to be a single man within the confines of my marriage.
No, what that means, I want a sovereign Alberta inside a unified Canada. Means stop treating Western Canada like a doormat. Stop taking billions of dollars from them per year and giving it to Quebec, giving it to Ottawa, giving it to the eastern provinces. It's absolutely ridiculous how long Alberta has been treated like a doormat. Almost 50% of the citizens are wanting to separate at this point. If she doesn't actually listen to them, she would not be a good leader. She's giving a way to let them vote to separate. So I commend her for that, even if I don't agree with her on everything. She's a good leader in case the separatist movement fails.
And I mean, technically, she would also, it doesn't really benefit her that much because she'd lose her job. She'd lose her province. But also speaking about at least something good from Mark Nixon, quote, Kate Harrison talks about the newly approved policy for the Conservatives, Castle Law. Conservatives believe Canadians have the right to protect their family and castle without fear of prosecution, which, I mean, the laws in Canada are insane regarding self-defense.
Yeah, if somebody breaks into your home, you use a gun or even defend yourself without a gun, you're the one that can be prosecuted.
You have to let them rob you, essentially.
Yeah.
Kate, what are your thoughts on the policy direction delegates were voting for there?
Yeah, well, just 2 points of clarification. The Stand Your Ground or Castle Laws actually doesn't speak about firearms whatsoever. That has to do with self-defense if somebody is breaking into your home. I recall a case that happened in my hometown of Lindsay, Ontario, where somebody who was broken into used some self-defense and force and ended up being arrested in the process, but despite being the victim of a B&E. So this is a response to instances like that. The immigration reforms had to do with people that are here who commit crimes and what happens to those people. So, it's not a broadly anti-immigration sentiment. I think what
there was a call for restricting immigration and tightening immigration controls, but not in an anti-immigration way, more like screening and these sorts of things, right?
And I think Polyev, made that very clear in his stance. He said, these things need to be linked to ability to access homes, ability to access healthcare, and making sure that we're not overextending. So I would observe
that these are policies that are likely to be very popular, not just with Conservatives, but with Canadians broadly. We've seen that particularly on immigration, where you have at least 2/3 of Canadians saying things have gotten out of control. So I think it's sensible that they would be adopted into the policy platform document or the policy proposal document.
You can leave it there. I really want to talk about the cancel law, but even on that second point where they're saying, oh, we don't really need to slow down immigration, we just need to screen better, that's a bad policy. And he's liberalizing himself to such a point because he needs to win a national election. It's now time for Alberta, Saskatchewan to leave because even the Conservative leadership on a national scale is no longer really conservative.
And seeing that kowtowing and saying like, no, but I mean, we don't mean it that way. Like, we don't mean no, when that would be an actual conservative, popular, I would say, policy amongst the actual true conservatives in Canada, but they have to continue to be essentially the Democrat Party up in Canada.
Yeah.
For the conservatives, I mean. Moving on. From Mark Nixon, quote, Mark Carney said he will move at unimaginable speeds, promised 500,000 new homes built per year, every year. It's been a year. They've delivered 9 homes so far.
And when you compare Trump to what they're doing up in Canada, ridiculous. And this is the Liberal Party in Canada. They make all these huge promises. Judge me by the grocery prices. A year later, grocery prices are through the roof. Judge me by how many homes I actually build.
9.
Let's see how many homes they actually build here.
Financial tools. Thank you. So how many of these units that you guys have done are move-in ready?
So 9 of the homes in Nunavut are moving ready. We just got the notice very soon. And all these units will have shovels in the ground in 2026.
So,
and as you know, it takes some time to build the units. And we're still waiting for the money from this budget bill.
So the first Canadian housing bureaucracy, CMHC, says that we need to build 500,000 housing units a year. And you said we've built 9. That's a long ways off, 500,000.
That it's just, and there was a similar situation when it came to, because in Canada, they're going to mandate all cars be electric by a certain year. Yet they were only able to build a few dozen power stations within Canada. It was absolutely ridiculous.
And electric vehicles don't work well in the cold either. So like the whole plan was insane on its face. But also speaking about housing, and she mentioned briefly there, it is also about the bureaucracy, the same bureaucracy that's asking them to build 500,000, that is impeding them from actually putting shovels in the ground because there's so much red tape before you can even build anything, even if it is the same government that's trying to do it who implemented their ridiculous policies in the first place. Speaking of prices and promises not delivered on, from Melissa, quote, Mark Carney just blamed the Conservatives for the fall of the Canadian dollar and therefore the highest food inflation in the G7.
Conservatives have not been in power since 2010. So it's been...
Since I arrived in Canada.
Yeah, it's been, about 15 years now?
Yeah, 14.
Mr. Speaker, one of the impacts, according to TD Bank, on food prices is the fall in the Canadian dollar caused by the obstructionism of the members opposite before this government came in place. What this government is giving Canadians is certainty, Mr. Speaker.
And basically he's saying we don't have enough consolidated power with the Liberal Party to pass the things that we want to pass. If Canada wanted you to have a majority government, they would have voted for it. Now I understand that they don't want a Conservative government. That's kind of why we left. The people in Canada, I just don't trust them to vote in their own interest at this point.
And Luna says, thank you for clarifying. And now I remembered where I know the series from. Luna says, Chicas de Cable is a Spanish series where female telephone operators fight for their rights as early feminists. Yeah, I remember that.
Wait, let's go into the last story with Canada.
Ethel says...
Oh, do we have any more Canadian stories?
No.
Oh, okay.
Ethel says, Clownland of Canada. Guys, you forgot to explain. How did you get to the truckers' convoy from Vancouver if you could not fly a plane without the JAP back then?
Yeah.
But we lived in Vancouver.
The truckers' convoy didn't just go on the East Coast. It actually went all the way across Canada. And when in certain places in Canada, there are big trucking communities. So like Alberta has a huge trucking community, and British Columbia, because it's right on the coast and all the ports are there, has a massive amount of truckers. So the BC border, at times they were trying to shut it down, but for the most part, there was just a mass protest there, and it was going on across all of Canada. And we were trying to get solidarity from really all the little movements that were going across the border to kind of spread, and it did work, and it was great. So there was more than just the one going on in Ottawa. It was also happening in BC.
And that's the one we went to, reported on, interviewed people at.
Our original videos on your channel?
Yeah, so down on the description, there's a link that says En Español. That is our now Spanish channel, but it was our first channel ever. So all the English videos are all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, so the very first video in there is the trucker protest. There's like 3 or 4 of them. The very first one, we just did a voiceover because we were too scared to be on camera. And we just kind of filmed with our cell phones. And then eventually we were on camera more and tried to interview people more. We went to... There was multiple protests at the BC borders, so we went to different border crossings where the truckers were kind of gathered, and they were rather big. They were organized, so a lot of people would come out on certain days, and then there was a strong faction that was there 24 hours a day.
And there were a few also showings in downtown Vancouver, but not as much.
No, it was all focused kind of on the border.
Yeah. Ethel says there's abundance of units in all major Canadian cities because no one wants to buy condos for the price of 2 houses in the US and pay strata fees on top. The market of Canada is collapsing, and also because a lot of them are badly built and built only as investments for people from other places like China to put their money and safeguard their money away from their place of origin.
Well, it's very interesting because I watch a lot of real estate channels on YouTube, and they talk about different properties in downtown Vancouver, like the luxury properties. And I know a lot of them because they were being built when we were there, and now they're completed. A lot of them have lost 50% of their value, which is absolutely crazy because they were luxury units. Nobody is buying these things. And the price hasn't really trickled down to your average normal units yet, but because people can buy luxury units at the price of normal units used to cost, eventually there's going to be the bottom's going to fall out of the market there. Right now, what you've seen is just everybody's trying to hold on to everything and they're not willing to lower the price. Only the new units where they have to sell to recoup their costs are lowering their price, but that's going to affect the whole market probably in 2026 and 2027. But the Canadian market was inflated probably by times 8 or times 10 of what it should be because of so much foreign investment.
And we do have 2 quick Latin American stories that we didn't cover on Monday, so we'll go into that, and then we'll go to RUMBLE. And we have one Asian story, apparently, but let's get into Latin America, which is changing, luckily, quickly. Mariana Alfo says, quote, Colombia's Petro, after meeting with Trump, the first line of illegal substance trafficking does not live in Colombia. It lives in Dubai, Madrid, and Miami. They are the bosses of the bosses. But he has taken a very different tone from the one that he was taking before Maduro got arrested with Trump in the U.S.
Yeah, well, his election's coming up, so I'll give you a quick breakdown. Colombia is going to be the first election that happens in 2026. It's expected to go right wing. After that, it's supposed to be, I believe, Brazil. Brazil's expected to go right wing as well. At this point, originally it was a hard left country. Somehow, Bolsonaro, the new Bolsonaro, may win, and I really hope so because that's really the crown jewel of South America. Mexico also being the other crown jewel of Latin America,
which is lost.
But that's not until 2030, that election. Also, Costa Rica had an election, and that did go right
That was
wing.
the first one, and we'll talk about this after this.
Línea del narcotráfico no es la que te imaginas. La primera línea del narcotráfico.
First line is not the one you imagine. It lives in Dubai, in Madrid, in Miami. It is known to U.S. agencies. I passed their names to President Trump. Their ties beyond themselves. It's they are the bosses of bosses. Their capital is outside of Colombia, and it's necessary to pursue them.
Okay, you can leave it there. Yeah, so basically he's passing names to Trump saying, we're cooperating with you. What he's doing is he's going to pick the winners and losers of the cartels in Colombia. The people he wants to lose, he's going to give the names to Trump, and they're going to bust him over there. So then it's going to consolidate power for the other cartels, which he's going to align himself with. That's typically how it works when nations are aligned with cartels. I expect something similar to happen in Mexico, honestly.
But we'll see. However, Costa Rica did take a stance finally, and we do see the right and the logic creeping up Latin America, luckily and hopefully it'll continue, from Eric Doherty, quote, right-wing populist Laura Fernandez wins presidential election for Costa Rica, her platform emulating that of El Salvador President Nayib Bukele. She pledged to build her own secot to lock up countless criminals like Bukele did. The right wing is rising. And with Costa Rica, it is and has been one of the most democratic countries in Latin America that has been able to continue kind of stable for the longest time as other countries crumble and become dictatorships. But now seeing this and seeing them move even further towards aligning with the rest of the countries that have done things that just make sense is good.
Yeah, and what we seen was the pink wave come through, and it was hard feminism, hard liberalism over the last decade. And now you're seeing a complete shift to the right, but it's the populist libertarian right. So I like the kind of populism that is coming up here. And if Brazil and Mexico can switch, that would be a dream.
Mm-hmm. And it will also kind of...
Mexico doesn't really have a conservative candidate at this point, but I am expecting...
Or a movement or right-wing.
But I'm expecting somebody to emerge, so...
Maybe Ricardo Salinas Pliego, but we'll see. It's still a long ways away. Okay, let's go to the one Asian story we have, which is technically not that Asian, but let's go. And if you haven't seen, and we have continued to talk about, I mean, there's another worrying aspect about immigration that mostly nobody talks about, which is the foreign influence and the foreign people going to the U.S. to steal or do nefarious things.
This was potentially one of the bigger stories that we hadn't reported on yet. I put it in the Asian section because it's related to China, but this is happening in the United States. Mm-hmm. And I'll bring something else out that Ethel might like to hear.
From Libs of TikTok, quote, the feds just discovered an illegal biolab in Las Vegas. The owner of the property is a Chinese national who was previously arrested in connection to another illegal biolab in California. They found pathogens labeled HIV, malaria, TB, COVID-19, and Ebola, which is not worrying at all.
Okay, and you can kind of leave it there. Yeah, and these biolabs are extremely concerning. This is the kind of warfare that's not direct warfare and that can absolutely cripple a country. The big biolabs that were previously exposed before this one was actually in Ukraine. They were all bordering Russia, and they tried hard to cover up this story, but it did get out there. I didn't get the publicity that they wanted. These were phase 3 biolabs. These means these were weaponized biolabs all along the border of Russia in Ukraine, and they were funded by the U.S. and the EU. There's 57 of them. That was extremely concerning, but the fact that didn't get more headlines at the time, and now they want to try to push this as it's a huge threat. It is a huge threat, and it was a huge threat back then. These biolabs need to go away. Period.
Now I'm forgetting, because I did a story, one of the first stories I did in our other channel in English was also about biolabs in was it an African country? I don't remember where, but that was also being destabilized almost kind of on purpose. And then they discovered that there were also a bunch of different biolabs, level whatever, 2, 3, very high level security.
Well, when you did that story, we were researching a lot, and that's when the Ukraine thing came up. And why was there 57 biolabs in a non-EU country bordering Russia that the CIA was involved in? That was absolutely crazy. But the more we researched that, I realized it was like all these little weird independent countries that had these biolabs that were being funded by the United States and the EU.
And that were destabilizing or had civil wars going on or had conflict at least.
Yeah.
Which was weird. But that is it for YouTube. Now we have to head over to RUMBLE because it's too spicy for CommieTube, as Ethel likes to call it. So we'll see you in a few seconds over at RUMBLE. Don't forget before you leave to subscribe here on YouTube. It really does help us out. We are really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And we'll see you over in a few seconds over there.